Compared to Donglin Yanxue, who had become embarrassed like a young lady, Jian Chen was extremely calm. His breathing was steady, and his mind was at ease. He slid his left hand under Donglin Yanxue's arms, allowing her shoulder blades to rest on them while he placed his right arm under her knees. With a little power, he lifted up Donglin Yanxue's hourglass figure again. Donglin Yanxue immediately stiffened. Although she had cultivated for quite a long time now, her mental state was still of a young lady around 20 years old. Even just making contact with men with her hands made her blush, let alone being carried by one. As a result, Donglin Yanxue's face and ears glowed bright red. Since Jian Chen was holding her so close, her head was basically pressed against Jian Chen's chest. She could even smell the unique scent of a man from Jian Chen's body. In that moment, Donglin Yanxue only felt dizzy as her head blanked out. Jian Chen remained at ease. He condensed a pair of wings from Radiant Saint Force on his back, and as they flapped, he flew along the ground with Donglin Yanxue. He only demonstrated the abilities that a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core should possess. I hope Qing Shan doesn't come soon, or I'll probably have to expose myself before Donglin Yanxue. Even though he had a beauty in his arms, Jian Chen did not think too much about it. He only prayed inside with some worry. Donglin Yanxue played a direct role in whether he could enter the Tower of Radiance or not, so she could not die here. However, Donglin Yanxue was already heavily injured now. She could not even perform simple actions, so if Qing Shan really came in pursuit at a time like this, she definitely would not be able to endure a single strike from him. Jian Chen would have to stand forward. However, Donglin Yanxue had woken up now. If he revealed his strength before Donglin Yanxue, he would definitely be exposed. As a result, Qing Shan following him was the thing that worried Jian Chen the most right now. Donglin Yanxue gradually calmed down as Jian Chen carried her. Even though she was very reluctant about the entire matter, she knew that she could change nothing. As a result, she could only slowly accept the reality of Jian Chen carrying her. Donglin Yanxue studied Jian Chen silently. When she discovered he was only focusing on covering ground and had no other thoughts, her opinion of Jian Chen changed slightly once again. Although he became my protector with the intention of getting close to me, at least he isn't like the 8 protectors, abandoning me when I faced death. When I was injured by Qing Shan and fell unconscious, he didn't abandon me and flee all by himself either, Donglin Yanxue thought. Unbeknownst to even Donglin Yanxue herself, her impression of Jian Chen had improved. Even her opposition to Jian Chen carrying her was reduced. At this moment, Donglin Yanxue sniffed Jian Chen's chest firmly, and she immediately became surprised. She thought, there's the smell of blood. Afterwards, for some reason, she unexpectedly pulled apart the clothing on Jian Chen's chest. Immediately, a few hideous wounds appeared. Jian Chen naturally received some injuries during his fight against Qing Shan. Some of the wounds had completely recovered under the powerful regeneration of the chaotic body, without even leaving a scar behind. However, some of the heavier wounds had not closed up completely due to the limited time. Although he had changed into a set of clean clothes as quickly as he could, he was unable to wash away the smell of blood on him. In the end, Donglin Yanxue smelt it and found the wounds immediately. You're injured? Donglin Yanxue's expression changed as she looked at the hideous injuries. It's only some small injuries. It's nothing, Jian Chen said uncaringly, but he groaned inside. He had never thought Donglin Yanxue would suddenly act like a completely different person, pulling apart his clothes boldly to reveal his wounds. The Donglin Yanxue he knew was not like that. Does it hurt? Donglin Yanxue looked at the wounds with mixed feelings as she asked softly. He was clearly injured, yet he still acted like he was fine, carrying her so that they could keep traveling. In that moment, Donglin Yanxue had become deeply touched. Jian Chen halted. He lowered his head and stared at Donglin Yanxue strangely. Since when did Donglin Yanxue start caring for him? Donglin Yanxue also noticed that she seemed to be caring too much when she sensed Jian Chen's strange gaze. Her face reddened slightly, and she covered up the wounds on Jian Chen's chest again. She said gently, "What are you staring for? Hurry up and keep moving. If Qing Shan catches up, neither of us will be left alive." A while later, Donglin Yanxue could not help but ask, "Why don't we stop for a while and treat your wounds so that they won't worsen over time? They're only superficial. They won't cause any problems." Afterwards, the two of them said nothing more. Jian Chen unleashed the greatest speed possible given his one-colored soul core, traveling for 3 days and 3 nights without resting at all with Donglin Yanxue. Only then did he act like he was exhausted, stopping in an extremely well-hidden cave. After all, the strength from a one-colored soul core was extremely limited. A Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core would have reached their limits long ago after traveling for 3 days and 3 nights at such speeds. If he continued to travel, he would reveal inconsistencies in his identity very easily. As a result, he had to stop. The gloomy cave was quiet. A fist-sized luminous pearl was wedged in the ceiling, providing limited light. Under the dim light, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue could just barely make out each other. The two of them sat separately. Jian Chen had already closed his eyes to heal his wounds with Radiant Saint Force. In reality, he had already made a full recovery with his chaotic body. He only used Radiant Saint Force as an act for Donglin Yanxue to see so that he could have a reasonable excuse for his recovered wounds. Before him, Donglin Yanxue sat on the ground while she hugged her knees. She stared at Jian Chen with mixed feelings all the way until he recovered. "Have you healed?" Opening his eyes, Jian Chen looked at Donglin Yanxue and asked despite knowing the answer. Donglin Yanxue was gloomy. She said helplessly, "My soul has injured by martial soul force. I can't use Radiant Saint Force. There is even a sliver of martial soul force deposited in my body. Although I've suppressed it with pills, it prevents me from healing as well. I won't be able to recover as long as the martial soul force remains. But in this world of moon and star, there's no one else who can help me purge this strand of martial soul force apart from Qing Shan, so it looks like I can only recover once I leave the world of moon and star and return to the sacred hall. In other words, I can only carry you with me for the next few days." Jian Chen stared at Donglin Yanxue after he heard that as he seemed to smile. Naturally, he knew about Donglin Yanshue's condition. When Qing Shan injured her, slivers of weak martial soul force were deposited in her body, preventing her from healing. Although he could easily purge the martial soul force with his abilities, he would never do something like that, as it would lead to him facing the risk of exposure. After all, he was playing the role of a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core right now. A Radiant Saint Master like that definitely lacked such ability. Donglin Yanshue's face reddened slightly in response to Jian Chen's mockery-like words. She lowered her head and remained silent. She also understood that while she was injured, she could not travel alone. She really did have to rely on Jian Chen during the remaining time in the world of moon and star. After a while of thought, Donglin Yanxue said gently, "We don't know where Elder He Tian is. He has probably met his end. The world of moon and star has already become a place where Qing Shan can rampage about recklessly, so we'll probably face Qing Shan's pursuit in the next few days. With our strength, we'll be done for if Qing Shan finds us. The world of moon and star has only just been opened. Unless we can get the elders outside to realize what has happened in here, we will have to wait out the entire year. I just wonder how long we will last." Donglin Yanxue sighed gently as she seemed worried. The current situation was already dire straits in her eyes. She basically saw no hope of surviving. Her trip in the world of moon and star should have been extremely safe since she was a candidate. After all, even if she came across extremely powerful vicious beasts, they could be easily slain by the 9 protectors. If that did not work, she could just retreat. She only needed to look for Radiant Saint Pearls without worrying about anything else. However, Qing Shan's sudden intrusion had completely messed up the trial. Not only did her 8 protectors abandon her to flee for their own lives, but she even faced the nightmare of being killed off by Qing Shan at any time. Moreover, many hidden vicious beasts roamed the world of moon and star. Some of the more powerful ones even possessed battle prowess enough to rival peak god kings. And beside her, there was only the one-colored soul core Changyang. He was basically useless with such puny cultivation. He would not be able to deal with any vicious beast that appeared, causing Donglin Yanxue to feel despair. Don't be too pessimistic. Aren't you still alive right now? Jian Qin comforted. When he saw Donglin Yanshue's despair, he sighed inside and continued, "Don't worry. The other hallowed saint masters in the world of moon and star may die, but we will definitely leave here alive." Clearly, Jian Chen's comforting was useless. Donglin Yanxue did not take his words to heart at all. What could a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core do in the world of moon and star? Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue did not remain there for long. Very soon, he picked up Donglin Yanxue and continued moving. He condensed a pair of radiant wings and hurried off with the greatest speed he could unleash given his one-colored soul core, flying into the depths of the world of moon and star. Jian Chen sensed the presence of many vicious beasts along the way. All of them were basically at godhood with very few below. Under Jian Chen's efforts, they avoided all the vicious beasts along the way easily. Moreover, to ensure that none of the vicious beasts would come to attack them, he expanded the senses of his soul constantly, observing the movements of the vicious beasts. The senses of his soul were so powerful that it was greater than all of the radiant god kings who had entered the world of moon and star. As a result, none of the vicious beasts were able to hide from him, including the peak god king existences. As a result, they never encountered even a single vicious beast as Jian Chen covered ground with Donglin Yanxue. There's another radiant origin pearl. That's the 6th radiant origin pearl I've come across. It's just a pity that the radiant origin pearls are protected by vicious beasts. Even the weakest have battle prowess equivalent to overgods, so I can't collect them while Donglin Yanxue is watching. Jian Chen glanced to the left casually. 100 kilometers in that direction, a radiant origin pearl had been hidden within a gloomy cave. A huge ape over 10 meters tall played around with the pearl as it glowed. At this moment, Jian Chen came to a sudden halt. He stared before him with shining eyes as he gradually became stern. A thick layer of white mist that stretched from the ground into the sky filled the distant horizon. At this moment, the white mist moved towards Jian Chen's location at an extremely rapid rate. The rolling white mist basically joined the earth with the sky. It seemed like a boundless screen, silently making its way over strangely like a group of ghosts. At the same time, roars suddenly rang out around Jian Chen. They were filled with fear and great unease. The senses of Jian Chen's soul burst out and enveloped a range of several million kilometers in a single instance. He could clearly see the vicious beasts constantly bellowing out in fear. They all left their territories and ran in the direction opposite to the mist. Even the huge ape that played around with the radiant origin pearl 100 kilometers from Jian Chen growled, tossing the pearl aside and fleeing from its territory suddenly. It ran off into the distance. In that moment, Jian Chen could clearly feel the ground tremble. This was caused by the frantic flight of the colossal beasts. These vicious beasts seemed to be afraid of the incoming mist. They all abandoned their territories and fled for their lives. What's happening? Donglin Yanxue, who was in Jian Chen's arms, also discovered something was off. She studied the surroundings, and in the end, she saw the mist. She became uneasy. "The white mist up ahead is extremely strange," said Jian Chen. He stared at the white mist and gradually became stern. The senses of his soul were unable to pierce the mist. What is the white mist? It's actually causing unease in so many vicious beasts. Oh no, the strange mist is approaching us. Donglin Yanxue became extremely grim. Before they had come here, the elders had never mentioned anything regarding white mist at all. As a result, she had no idea what this phenomenon was. "Changyang, what should we do now?" Donglin Yanxue had no idea what to do. Since she was born into a large clan, she had basically grown up under the care and protection of her seniors. She had never faced a dire situation alone, so she immediately became flustered now that she faced danger. However, when she saw Jian Chen's calm, unflustered face, her heart actually calmed down slightly for some reason. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered as he stared at the shrouding mist up ahead. He said, "The mist covers far too great of an area, and it moves extremely quickly. It's impossible for us to make our way around it with the time remaining. As a result, only two options remain for us. Apart from retreating back the way we came, we can only charge into the mist. It's extremely likely for us to encounter Qing Shan if we retreat, so we can only charge through the mist." Jian Chen made up his mind quickly, and in the next moment, he carried Donglin Yanxue and charged into the mist without a second thought. It sure was a coincidence. Just when Jian Chen entered the mist with Donglin Yanxue, the mist gradually slowed down, coming to a complete halt. It stopped spreading forwards. Afterwards, the strange mist that seemed to link the ground and the sky gradually thinned out. It became fainter and fainter to the point where even the region engulfed by the mist became visible. Finally, in under a minute, the strange mist that had silently appeared vanished from the world of moon and star completely. The surroundings completely cleared up. Strangely, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue had completely vanished after charging into the mist. They were gone. Jian Chen experienced a strange feeling the instant he stepped into the mist. He felt like he had left the world of moon and star, entering a different world. Of course, he only experienced that for a split second before dismissing it. He began to study the mist. Jian Chen's gaze was piercing. Like a pair of lanterns, they shone brightly as he looked around. However, he discovered very soon that he was actually unable to see through the mist with his vision. The mist was extremely strange. It seemed to possess a mysterious power where even Jian Chen struggled to see further than a meter. It had to be mentioned that in the world of moon and star, he could clearly see everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. However, his vision was limited to a meter here. That was not all. Even the senses of his soul had been rendered useless in the mist. Once it left his body, it stopped working. At this moment, Jian Chen was no different from a blind man. "Changyang, I can't see anything here at all," Donglin Yanshue's rather flustered and uneasy voice rang out. Jian Chen, on the other hand, immediately felt a strange feeling from his neck. Donglin Yanxue had already wrapped her hands around it tightly. Jian Chen could even sense Donglin Yanshue's uneasiness through her hands. "The mist is strange. I can't see anything either," Jian Chen said with composure. He was filled with caution. Since the appearance of the mist could unsettle all the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star, it meant that the mist definitely was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. Some kind of fatal danger was definitely hidden within it. However, Jian Chen showed no fear. Barely anything could threaten him in the world of moon and star given his strength. Even if he encountered danger that he could not handle, he still had the Enata Tower as a trump card. Jian Chen held Donglin Yanxue as he traveled in a straight line based off instinct alone. He lost sense of time and direction. He even lost sense of distance. He had no idea how long he had been walking through the mist, nor did he know how far he had traveled. The expected dangers did not appear, and their journey was surprisingly smooth. At this moment, a faint, azure light appeared up ahead in the hazy mist. Jian Chen's eyes immediately narrowed. The faint, azure light was eye-catching and attention-grabbing in the snow-white mist. It caught his attention immediately. Jian Chen hesitated slightly before speeding up. He was traveling towards the azure light. As Jian Chen rapidly drew closer, the azure light became more and more resplendent. In that moment, it seemed like a lighthouse in the dark, directing Jian Chen. In the end, Jian Chen charged out of the mist under the guidance of the azure light, and the landscape around him immediately cleared up. A majestic, ancient divine hall made out of rusted bronze lay before him like a primordial beast. It stood there quietly. The entire bronze divine hall bore the presence of age as if it had existed for countless years. The bronze divine hall stood within the hazy mist. The azure light that it shone with seemed to possess a mysterious power, purging the mist from its surroundings. I never thought there would be such a place hiding within the world of moon and star. Jian Shen stared at the divine hall in a daze. After a while of thought, he asked, Donglin Yanxue, with your status in the Radiant Saint Hall, have you heard anything about this bronze divine hall before? He did not receive a response. When he lowered his head, he discovered that Donglin Yanxue's eyes were closed. She had fainted some time ago. Jian Shen raised his hand and glanced at the bronze divine hall before looking at the rolling mist behind him. He frowned slightly. If he returned the way he came from now, he would probably get lost in the mist because he had no sense of direction when he was in it. He would not be able to find his way out. As a result, he could only advance forwards now. Making up his mind, Jian Shen immediately carried the unconscious Donglin Yanxue onwards, approaching the bronze divine hall. When he climbed the long flight of stairs and stood before the door that was hundreds of meters tall, it produced a deep rumble and slowly opened. Immediately, a desolate, primal presence gushed out from the divine hall as a refreshing gust of wind. Jian Shen could not help but close his eyes and submerge himself within it. Under the surge of the presence, he felt as if he had experienced an indefinite amount of time. It was like countless years had passed in an instant. A while later, when he opened his eyes and looked at the gaping door into the bronze divine hall, his eyes immediately deepened. The bronze divine hall of mysterious origins and unknown age had actually opened its door by itself. He could sense that he did not come here coincidentally. The master of the bronze divine hall made all of this happen. Jian Shen stood in the doorway. After hesitating slightly, he stepped in. Boom! The door slammed shut heavily after he entered the bronze divine hall. Jian Shen carried Donglin Yanxue as he stood there. He remained calm as he said clearly to the empty room, Senior, please show yourself. Why have you led me here? With that, strands of azure light condensed before him, gradually forming an old man. He was illusionary and completely condensed from light. He did not have a physical body. Jian Shen's heart jumped the moment the old man appeared. He could clearly sense that the slumbering sword spirits were actually beginning to awaken slowly. Jian Shen was overjoyed by the awakening of the sword spirits. Ever since he assisted Mo Tianyin's original body in breaking free and fused the twin swords, the sword spirits had fallen into a slumber due to overexertion. No matter how he called them during this time, he had received no response at all. Now that the sword spirits were finally beginning to awaken, Jian Shen would obviously be delighted. But at the same time, he realized that the old man before him was not simple. He had a vague feeling that the sword spirits only began to awaken because of this old man. The sword spirits appeared above Jian Shen's head as two young people completely condensed from light. The man was handsome, while the woman was pretty. They seemed like a matching pair. They stared at the old man condensed from azure light, and they gradually became stern. They called out, Primeval Qi. I never thought we would see a spirit transformed from a strand of primeval Qi. Jian Shen was surprised. He could not help but study the old man closely. Even though he did not really understand what primeval Qi was, he had somewhat realized that the old man was an existence similar to the sword spirits. The old man stared at the sword spirits with mixed feelings inside in amazement, spirits formed from Yin Qi and Yang Qi. I never thought that after so many years, would be able to meet existences similar to me in this cursed land. But it seems like you're extremely weak. Old Senior, are you the hall spirit of this divine hall? Jian Shen could not contain his curiosity and asked for confirmation. The old man looked at Jian Shen and nodded, that's right. I'm the hall spirit. Then may I ask where the master of this divine hall is? Jian Shen continued his questions. The old man sighed gently as he became slightly dispirited. He said glumly, Master has already passed away in the flow of time. He isn't from this aeon. The eyes of the sword spirits lit up when they heard that. They asked, You're from the previous aeon? The old man shook his head again and replied, it should be the aeon before that if you want to be more accurate. The aeon before that? The sword spirits were surprised. They looked at the old man deeply and said, "Since you've existed for so long, why haven't there been any rumors regarding you in the outside world?" "That's because I'm trapped here. I can't leave, and no one knows about this place either." "Obviously, there will be no news about me at all in the outside world," said the old man. He glanced at Jian Shen and the sword spirits deeply and continued, "You're the first group of living souls I've seen in the countless years since my master passed away, as well as the first living creatures to set foot in this cursed land." Cursed land? Why is this place referred to as a cursed land? And what's with the mist outside? Is the mist responsible for trapping you here? Jian Shen asked. "Nay. The mist you see is not what traps me. Instead, it is a wondrous power that was created by the fusion of the power of the curse and the power of the primeval divine hall. In regards to the cursed land, the world of moon and star you were in before and where the primeval divine hall stands all belong to it. The curse came from the Tao Union Saint. It has already fused with the surroundings, combining with the world and basically creating a new type of law. It's omnipresent. You can't sense its existence with your current level of cultivation. It's also because of this curse that I can't leave this place. Even the past territory of my master, the Saint of Grand Clarity, has been severely damaged. It's called the world of Grand Clarity, which is also the current world of moon and star." The old man said slowly. "So the world of moon and star used to be called the world of Grand Clarity. Since the mist is power from the primeval divine hall, and you're the artifact spirit of the primeval divine hall, the mist must be under your control. The reason why I can come here is because of your guidance. May I ask what intentions you have for getting me here?" Jian Shen asked. "It's because I can sense a droplet of a saint's essence blood within your body. Most importantly, your body contains 2 strands of yin and yang qi that exists like me. It's exactly because of them that I made you come here." "A saint's essence blood? Are you referring to this?" Jian Shen was puzzled. He pointed at where the ancient Skywolf's essence blood in his body was located. "That's right. That's a saint's essence blood. The owner of the essence blood was the most powerful saint during my master's aeon. Of course, saints may have another name in your aeon," said the artifact spirit. Jian Shen finally understood when he heard that. Saints were actually the current Grand Exalts. The Tao Union Saint's curse is no longer as powerful as before after the passing of 2 eons. However, in order for me to break free, I still need 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood. If you can collect those 10 droplets for me and free me, I'll bestow a strand of primeval qi to you. Primeval qi is a type of power that came into existence with chaos. It's second to chaotic force in terms of quality and is at the same level as your yin qi and yang qi, but it does contain other mysteries to it. I think you know exactly how much it can benefit you. You will definitely be getting the better end of the deal by exchanging it for 10 droplets of a saint's blood. It's actually a huge fortuitous encounter for you," the hall spirit said to the sword spirits. What he truly focused on were the sword spirits who were a similar existence to him. He did not place much attention on Jian Shen. Even though Jian Shen possessed a droplet of a saint's essence blood, he also knew that Jian Shen had only obtained it through luck, and there was only 1 drop of it. However, most of the power within the saint's essence blood had leaked away, so it was not very useful to him at all. The sword spirit's eyes immediately lit up with desire, something they rarely showed, when they heard the hall spirit's offer of a strand of primeval qi. But very soon, they calmed down. The burning desire within their eyes vanished, and they sighed in pity. Collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts is just too difficult. After all, this essence blood isn't regular blood. Let alone essence blood, even the regular blood of Grand Exalt is basically impossible to obtain unless we return to that age when our old master stood supreme. Qing Sua also sighed. "Zi-ing, Qing Sua, what are the uses of primeval qi to you?" Jian Shen could not help but ask when he saw the sword spirit's desire it so badly. Master, a strand of primeval chi can allow us to surpass our previous peak and take a step further, becoming even more powerful, Ziying said with burning desire. Nothing in the world could resist the temptation of becoming even more powerful, whether they be the many cultivators or innate spirits like the sword spirits. Jian Shen was surprised inside. The sword spirits were an extremely powerful existence at their prime. The fusion of the twin swords possessed devastating power. If they could take a step further than that, just how great would they become? Since the primeval chi would be so useful to the sword spirits, Jian Shen became interested. He was tempted to obtain it immediately. The sword spirits had already accepted him as their master. If the sword spirits became even more powerful, his battle prowess would indirectly increase as well. Jian Shen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He stared at the hall spirit with mixed feelings and said in thought, actually, removing your curse isn't anything difficult at all. All you need is a grand exalt, an existence akin to a saint, to take action, and it should be enough to easily nullify the curse of another saint. If you're willing, I can find a way to find an expert like that for you. Jian Shen began to think about how he could obtain the strand of primeval chi after learning just how useful it was to the sword spirits. He did not dare to think about collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Primes because such a matter was completely impossible to accomplish. Even in the distant future, he would not be able to do something like that. Even though finding a Grand Exalt was almost impossible as well, it was much easier than collecting 10 droplets of essence blood. Jian Shen considered finding a Grand Exalt to remove the curse that kept the artifact spirit bound in exchange for the strand of primeval chi. After all, these were only a handful of Grand Exalts in the current saint's world. With his current strength, meeting an expert like that would not be easy, so he was not going overboard by offering that in exchange for the primeval chi. Moreover, he believed that once a Grand Exalt discovered the existence of the primeval divine hall, they would definitely take personal action with its value. After all, the primeval divine hall was a god artifact on par with the twin swords. However, Jian Shen's words seemed to have touched the hall spirit's soft spot. His eyes immediately became piercing as he stared at Jian Shen viciously. He said coldly, "Brat, it's best if you don't do that, or I will never spare you even if the yin and yang qi are protecting you." Jian Shen immediately frowned when he saw the hall spirit's violent reaction and heard his threats. He stared at the old man before him. He was unable to tell what the artifact spirit was thinking. "Primeval chi, the method mentioned by my master is indeed the only method to free you quickly," the sword spirit said in displeasure. The artifact spirit said coldly, "I've already considered that. If I really wanted to do that, I would have been free long ago. Why would I still be trapped here today? It's just that once a saint learns of my existence, I won't be able to avoid the fate of accepting them as my master. I don't want to yield to anyone else after my master's death, even if they're the strongest saint in the world." Jian Shen's expression immediately became strange when he heard that. He felt that this artifact spirit was far too different. He was clearly an artifact spirit, yet he also wanted unconditional freedom. The sword spirits stared at the artifact spirit with mixed feelings. They said, "But you're still an artifact spirit in the end. The reason for an artifact spirit's existence is to stand with its master. It's basically impossible for you to avoid this fate. Even if you can avoid it for some time, it won't last forever. You'll be sensed by the sovereigns of the world sooner or later once you break free and appear in the outside world." "Humph, that's not for you to worry about." The artifact spirit snorted coldly, 10 droplets of a saint's blood for a strand of primeval chi that can make you even more powerful. Are you willing to make the deal or not? I know you're very weak right now, and you can't collect saint's essence blood, but your innate spirit's transformed from yin and yang qi after all. You'll possess that ability someday in the future. Primeval chi, if you want the 10 droplets of essence blood, you should be asking our master, not us, replied the sword spirits. Your master? The artifact spirit glanced at Jian Shen and studied him. He showed some scorn and said, "Him? Although I have no idea why you would choose him as your master, I definitely don't think he'll have the ability to collect 10 droplets of essence blood for me in the future. Although he already has a droplet of a saint's essence blood within him, I can also sense that the essence blood comes from a saint from the aeon before the last one and not this aeon. The only reason he possesses it is luck. Luck like that won't accompany him forever. The artifact spirit suddenly paused, and his face became rather strange. He continued, "Are you trying to say to wait for your master to become a saint in the future?" Before the sword spirits could reply, the artifact spirit sneered and said, "If that's really what you're thinking, I can only tell you that you're far too naive. I know the amount of difficulties and the amount of setbacks on the path to becoming a saint far better than the two of you. During the aeon when my master stood supreme, the path to becoming a saint was also known as a path of bones. The reason why it's called that is because every single saint only arrived where they were by crossing over skeletons after skeletons. The creation of every saint comes at the cost of countless corpses, the deaths of countless prodigies. Your master might have some ability as a current prodigy, but he might just become a stepping stone for other prodigies in their paths to becoming saints in the future. If you want me to place my hopes on your master, that only seems like a waste of time to me," the artifact spirit argued. He did not try to hide his disdain towards Jian Shen at all. Although he was an artifact spirit, he originated from a strand of primeval qi. He had his pride. Even grand exalts would struggle to make him yield, let alone Jian Shen who was only a god king right now. The artifact spirit's scorn towards Jian Shen angered the sword spirits very much. Qing Suo immediately snorted coldly, "Our master is nowhere near as ordinary as you've described him to be. Primeval qi, open your eyes and take a good look." "Humph, you still think so? All right then, let me see where your confidence comes from." The artifact spirit did not take the sword spirit's words too seriously. However, he still studied Jian Shen earnestly. However, when he did so, his face immediately changed drastically. As if he had been frightened, he could not help but stumble backwards. Even his illusionary body condensed from azure light flickered violently and almost collapsed. Chapter 23:12 Forbidden by the world, impossible, impossible. This is impossible, the artifact spirit was unable to stop himself. Shock filled his face as he stared straight at Jian Shen in extreme fear. Jian Shen frowned when he saw the artifact spirit lose his composure. He asked sternly, "What did you see from me?" Why, your existence is forbidden by the world. The world cannot tolerate you. Your final fate will be getting mercilessly eliminated by the world. You will face a horrific end. It's impossible for you to make it to the end of your path. The artifact spirit pointed at Jian Shen as he shrieked out hysterically. He had reacted as if he had seen something extremely terrifying from Jian Shen. Despite being an artifact spirit who had lived through 2 eons and countless years and even followed a saint, he was unable to remain composed. Jian Shen frowned heavily. He stared deeply at the artifact spirit who had reacted so violently. He could not help but think back to the spirit of the Inata Tower he had encountered back on the Tianyuan continent from the artifact spirit's response. When the spirit of the Inata Tower used his special ability to catch a glimpse of Jian Shen's future, he had also reacted like the artifact spirit. His expression had changed, and he cried out similar things. "Can you tell me what you saw from me? Why am I forbidden by the world, and why does the world want to eliminate me?" Jian Shen asked again. He was eager to find out from the artifact spirit. Jian Shen was just too curious about that glimpse of the future. At the same time, he felt rather uneasy and worried. Just the thought of being eliminated by the world was chilling. It was very difficult for Jian Shen to calm down after hearing that. That's because you're taboo. You should have never existed in the first place. And I can't tell you what I saw. I cannot disclose the heavenly secrets." The artifact spirit looked at Jian Shen with fear. He was still shaken. Currently, his gaze towards Jian Shen was extraordinarily stern. He no longer despised him. "Perhaps you haven't sensed anything strange right now, nor can you sense any ill omens. That's because you're far too weak right now, weak to the point where any expert could easily crush you. You obviously won't touch on the taboo like that. However, once your strength reaches a certain level in the future, you will know what your final fate is. At that time, you will become an enemy of the entire world, the entire universe. The world wants to eliminate you. No one can help you, including the strongest saint in the world. Even the yin and yang qi won't be of any use. Your final fate is death, completely vanishing from the world. That is your destiny, the artifact spirit followed up sternly. Humph, primeval qi, it's still too soon for you to make a conclusion like that. Did you clearly see Master's death in the glimpse of the future you saw? The artifact spirit's words displeased the sword spirits greatly. Ziying immediately rebuked him. Nothing can survive once targeted by the world. Even people as powerful as saints will still die to the infinite cataclysm at the end of an aeon, erased by the world, the artifact spirit said grimly. Most of the saints you speak of are only some mortal beings with great talent who climbed their way up step by step. How can they be compared to Master? Ziying said seriously. Since Master has appeared, he definitely won't die. Even if he faces the elimination of the world, he'll survive despite the fright, Qing Suo also swore. She was confident in Jian Chen. The artifact spirit fell silent. He had gradually calmed down. He stared at Jian Chen with shining eyes as the light in them flickered with wisdom. A while later, he suddenly said, "If you can collect 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood and remove the Dao Union saint's curse, I'll change my initial offer. I'll accept you as my second master." Accept me as your second master? Jian Chen was surprised by the sudden change in attitude. He stared at the artifact spirit strangely and snickered, "Your offer is quite tempting, but I don't think it'll bring me any benefit at all. That's because once I become powerful enough to collect the essence blood of Grand Exalts, you might not be of any use to me anymore. Of course, that is unless you accept me as your master right now. Only then will I search for the essence blood of Grand Exalts without sparing any effort for you." The artifact spirit shook his head and replied, "As long as the Dao Union Saint's curse remains, I won't be able to leave nor will I be able to bring you any help. If you want me to take you as my master, if you want me to serve you, you need to bring me 10 droplets of a Grand Exalt's essence blood so that I can recover my freedom. And I think the help I'll bring to you before you become a saint will be far greater than the yin and yang qi," the artifact spirit said confidently. Afterwards, Jian Chen felt the landscape around him change. He had already been taken to another gloomy space by the artifact spirit. Several dozen huge creatures sat before him with their eyes closed. These creatures seemed extremely like humans, but they were not. Do you see them? They're the strongest generals who followed my master in the past. Even though they're already dead and their souls have been dispersed, their bodies and the power within their bodies have been perfectly preserved under my powers. As long as you plant a new soul in them, they'll immediately be able to fight for you. How powerful are these people? Jian Chen asked. He stared at the fallen generals with interest. These experts were ancient beings from 2 eons ago. Before you become a saint, these generals will provide you with the greatest assistance. After all, they had once been raised by my master, the Saint of Grand Clarity, through great efforts, said the artifact spirit. Jian Chen immediately became interested when he heard that. His eyes lit up eagerly. It was quite obvious just how powerful these generals were from the artifact spirit's words. Of course, these generals are unable to fight for you before you find 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood. The Dao Union Saint's curse restrains me, so before its removal, I don't have the power to awaken them, continued the artifact spirit. Is a droplet of essence blood enough to awaken 1 or 2 of them? Jian Chen asked eagerly. He could take out a droplet right now. No, there needs to be 10 droplets of essence blood and no less, or I can't break free from the Dao Union Saint's curse. Looks like there's no other way then. The artifact spirit's words were like dousing Jian Chen in cold water. It immediately destroyed his fantasies. Saints were experts on the same level as Grand Exalts. Collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts was not something Jian Chen dared to consider even in his wildest dreams. He could not obtain the artifact spirit's assistance or directly possess the bronze divine hall in a short amount of time. Afterwards, Jian Chen discussed with the artifact spirit some more. In the end, he was forced to accept the reality that the primeval divine hall had nothing useful to him before he obtained 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts. I'll leave an imprint on the back of your hand. This imprint is the key to the world of grand clarity. When you collect the 10 droplets of essence blood one day, activate the imprint using the method that I'll teach you, and the gateway to here will open up before you. Bear in mind that you can only open the gateway when you're in regular space. The imprint will be rendered useless in some wondrous places, sealed spaces, or even miniature worlds carved out by supreme experts. The imprint can only open the gateway once, so do not activate it before you collect the 10 droplets of essence blood. Under the restraint of the curse, I no longer have the power to give you a second key. Even if you enter the world of grand clarity some other way, I only have enough power to bring you here once because the primeval divine palace isn't located in the world of grand clarity. This power can only be used once you've collected the 10 droplets of essence blood. The curse from the Dao Union Saint has kept me suppressed for far too long. I can't stay conscious over long periods of time. I must continue slumbering. Leave by yourselves, the artifact spirit warned Jian Chen about many things. After he said that, his figure condensed from azure light seemed to disperse in the breeze like a wisp of smoke. Jian Chen had been sent back to the first floor of the primeval divine hall by the artifact spirit. It was where he had first entered the structure. The method to activate the imprint was now in his head. The ancient hall immediately fell silent. Only Jian Chen was left standing in the huge hall, along with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. Master, we still haven't recovered from the fusion, so we need to sleep for a while longer, the voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jian Chen's head. Afterwards, he could clearly sense that the sword spirits had fallen back into a slumber. In that moment, Jian Chen felt rather ashamed. He knew that he had fused the twin swords to free Mo Tianyin's original body last time selfishly, ignoring all the objections from them. He had exerted the sword spirits far too much to the point where they still had not recovered even now. I have to collect 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts. Even if it's not for the primeval divine hall, I have to do it for the strand of primeval chi. Jian Chen secretly swore an oath. The only way for him to make it up to the sword spirits was to obtain the primeval chi that would allow them to exceed their former prime. Afterwards, he glanced at his hand. There was a shallow imprint on the back of his hand, and as he looked at it, it gradually faded before disappearing completely in the end. However, Jian Chen knew that the key to the world of grand clarity had already fused into the back of his hand completely. It was hidden away deeply such that only he could sense its existence. Jian Chen left the primeval divine hall with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue and appeared outside. It was still the same as when he first arrived. A strange mist filled the surroundings, while the primeval divine hall shone with a dazzling azure light that seemed to glow forever, illuminating the region. This should be the tunnel out of here. Jian Chen looked forwards. The strange mist swirled around slowly there. Even though it was all misty within the swirl, Jian Chen could sense the powers of space. However, he did not leave because he somewhat understood that as long as he remained here, Donglin Yanxue would remain unconscious. Her unconsciousness did not come from her wounds, rather, it was because of the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit did not want another master, so he did not want Donglin Yanxue to learn of his existence. It was a measure taken just in case Donglin Yanxue disclosed this fact and drew in experts from the outside world. If she awakens, I'll be really restrained. I won't be able to act freely at all. It looks like I need to spend some time here. Jian Chen was in no hurry to leave. With a thought, the Inata Tower suddenly appeared. Under Jian Chen's control, the damaged Inata Tower covered in sword slashes stood several hundred meters tall. The artifact spirit had already hidden itself in this wondrous space for 2 eons, so he did not need to worry about being discovered by experts in the outside world if he took out the Inata Tower here. Afterwards, Jian Shen placed the unconscious Donglin Yanxue outside the Enata Tower, allowing her to remain under the influence of the artifact spirit. He, on the other hand, entered the Enata Tower with a flash. Unbeknownst to Jian Shen, a figure shrouded in hazy light was sitting within the majestic heavenly palace of Bisheng when he took out the Enata Tower. The power of laws revolved around the figure, conjuring the mysteries of the world. Vaguely, the laws seemed to boom out like a great chime. The figure seemed to have fused with the laws, becoming a part of them. The figure truly seemed to be supreme, capable of controlling the supreme power that operated the world. They seemed to represent the greatest will of the world. In that moment, the figure seemed to sense something. Their eyes snapped open. The pair of eyes were extremely cold, holding no emotions at all and looking down on all lives. Primeval force, the figure murmured. The voice seemed to contain all the sounds of the world while the cold eyes seemed to pierce through space into the depths of the cosmos. Heya, just break through here. A divine hall stood within the Enata Tower. Jian Shen stood outside the divine hall as he spoke to the black-clothed Heya. Heya had already reached peak God King, and with the flower of ways from Jian Shen, he had already comprehended the mysteries of the primordial realm. He could break through at any time. However, the divine hall he previously stayed in was unable to endure the pulses of energy from his breakthrough due to its limited grade. As a result, he could only delay his breakthrough under Jian Shen's request. Now that they were in the wondrous space where the artifact spirit resided, Jian Shen did not need to worry about exposing the Enata Tower. As a result, he moved Heya into the Enata Tower for him to break through inside it. Yes, Master. Heya replied politely. Afterwards, he sat on the floor and began his breakthrough. Jian Shen smiled gladly as he watched Heya. Once Heya reached the primordial realm, it would hold extremely great significance to him. It would mean possessing a primordial realm expert that was completely devoted to him. He could use Heya whenever he wanted. At this moment, Jian Shen could not help but think back to the situation with the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the past. When the divine kingdom faced the invasion of the Empyrean demon cult, just a single vice leader who had reached the primordial realm, Huayan, was enough to suffocate most of the experts from the divine kingdom. During that time, the primordial realm was synonymous with expert. As a matter of fact, the primordial realm seemed like an uncrossable mountain in the eyes of many god kings. This was because a huge, gaping chasm separated the primordial realm and godhood. Out of the countless god kings in the saints' world, only a few would truly be able to reach the primordial realm. Once a divine kingdom gained a primordial realm expert, its status would immediately change. It would become an empire. Now, Jian Shen was about to have a primordial realm expert all to himself, so it was obviously a joyous matter. Suddenly, Jian Shen thought of something. He slowly raised his hand, and an extremely beautiful orchid suddenly appeared. The orchid possessed self-consciousness and had rather high intelligence. As soon as it appeared, it swayed like it was greeting Jian Shen. Jian Shen paid attention to the immortal devouring orchid in his hand and smiled faintly. You've finally reached godhood. You should be able to enjoy the corpses of the two god kings now. As he said that, two corpses gradually hovered out from the divine hall before landing gently near Jian Shen's feet. The two corpses belonged to the people Gongjing Xian had sent to deal with him back when he left the Radiant Saint Hall. In the end, they had been pulled into the divine hall and were finished off by Heya. Jian Shen had kept their corpses around for the immortal devouring orchid to feast on so that they could nourish the orchid. The immortal devouring orchid possessed a certain degree of intelligence now. When it saw the two corpses, it became especially excited. It immediately leapt off Jian Shen's hand and rooted down on one of the corpses, beginning to spread its roots. The immortal devouring orchid had only just reached godhood. It was equivalent to an early deity. Obviously, it could not devour the two corpses that were far more powerful than it instantly with its current abilities. As a result, it rooted itself in one of the open injuries and slowly absorbed a droplet of the God King's blood. The energy within a God King was just too tremendous for it right now. As a result, the immortal devouring orchid could only absorb a single droplet of blood at a time. Jianchen watched the immortal devouring orchid eagerly. The early deity orchid might have only been able to absorb a single droplet of blood at a time, but the amount of blood it could absorb each time would constantly increase as it rapidly strengthened. Once it reached a certain level in strength, it would be able to directly devour an entire corpse or even multiple corpses. I bestow these 2 corpses upon you. You have to properly increase your strength in the next period of time, Jianchen said gently. The immortal devouring orchid was of no use to him right now, but he firmly believed the sword spirit's words. The immortal devouring orchid would be of great help to him in the future. Afterwards, Jianchen appeared on the 9th floor, arriving where Qing Yishuan cultivated. Qing Yishuan currently sat on the fortune jade as golden light permeated her surroundings. She seemed holy. Strands of the laws of the sword revolved around her. Sword chi condensed and shone with dazzling white light, swimming around her like tiny tadpoles. Sharp sword chi enveloped a range of several dozen meters around her. Early over God. Jianchen saw through Qing Yishuan's current strength with a single glance, and he could not help but nod secretly. At this rate, Qing Yishuan would reach God King or even the primordial realm before too long. Of course, apart from the golden core of laws within her, the fortune jade also played a crucial role in her quick progress. The bottlenecks for the cultivation realms are very easy to break through, so under the assistance of the golden core of laws and the fortune jade, her rate of improvement can be described as ungodly. However, the further she advances, the more difficult the breakthroughs for each cultivation realm will become. Even with the golden core of laws and the fortune jade, it'll take her quite some time to make progress. I wonder how long it'll take for her comprehension of the laws of the sword to reach God King, Jianchen murmured gently. He had used the fortune jade to directly comprehend the mysteries in the golden core of laws, spending only around half a year to reach early God King in one type of law. However, it was impossible for Qing Yishuan to achieve the same speed. As a result, Qing Yishuan needed much more time than Jianchen despite using the same method for her comprehension. Jianchen reached out, and Qing Yishuan, who sat on the fortune jade, was immediately enveloped by an invisible power. She rose up slowly, leaving the fortune jade. The fortune jade suddenly flew over and landed in Jianchen's hand. Qing Yishuan sensed nothing throughout the entire process because Jianchen had lifted her using the power of the Inata Tower. Under Jianchen's purposeful control, she was completely unaffected. Afterwards, Jianchen left the 9th floor with the fortune jade and returned to Heiya's location on the 1st floor. With a thought, he controlled the power of the Inata Tower and placed the fortune jade under Heiya in a similar manner. Immediately, the hazy light from the fortune jade enveloped Heiya, shrouding his figure. After placing the fortune jade there, Jianchen could clearly sense Heiya's presence rise at a rate several times faster than before. It was evident that the fortune jade was of great help to Heiya's breakthrough. I hope you can reach the primordial realm successfully before I leave here, Jianchen thought. For Heiya to break through to the primordial realm in the shortest time possible, Jianchen had used everything he could think of. He even used a treasure like the fortune jade on Heiya without any hesitation at all. He truly spared no effort in nurturing Heiya. Jianchen did not waste the following period of time either. He used the short period to enter seclusion as well. I've already comprehended the laws of strength, the laws of space, and the laws of destruction to God King when I was in the underground cavern. All that remains are the laws of creation, the laws of fire, the laws of corrosion, and the laws of curses. I've already comprehended the laws of curses to mid over God. I'm close to God King now. I need to comprehend the 7 laws to God King as soon as possible, as they play a direct role in whether I can leave the desolate plain in the future or not. Even if I can't keep the Inata Tower, I have to be the one who hands it to the heavenly palace of Bisheng. I can't let others take advantage of me. Jianchen closed his eyes. The laws that belonged to the power of curses gradually descended, wrapping around him. The space where the artifact spirit resided was always surrounded by white mist. There were no celestial bodies, so he could not sense the flow of time at all. suddenly, a powerful presence appeared. It was like a storm had begun to rage abruptly on a calm ocean surface. It made the calm space surge with energy as the gales howled like ghosts. The sudden occurrence roused Jian Chen from his comprehension of the laws of curses. He opened his eyes and looked at Heya nearby. He smiled happily. Heya had finally broken free from the shackles of God King and stepped into the primordial realm. He had become a primordial realm expert. Master. Before long, the energy around Heya gradually subsided. He stood up and bowed towards Jian Chen with undisguised joy. Has your golden core of laws formed? Jian Chen stared at Heya with brimming interest. Heya nodded. He glanced at the fortune jade beneath him and said happily, "It should have taken quite some time for the golden core of laws to condense as I broke through to the primordial realm. However, not only has this jade shorted my breakthrough time drastically, it has also allowed my golden core of laws to condense quicker. It helped me consolidate my cultivation as an infinite prime in an extremely short amount of time. Master, I'm formally a primordial realm expert now. I'll truly be able to assist Master now." Heya was both overjoyed and excited. He felt deep gratitude towards Jian Chen. He knew that if it were not for Jian Chen's extravagant offerings of priceless heavenly resources, the time till he reached the primordial realm would have been continuously drawn out. He might not even have the opportunity to reach the primordial realm. The primordial realm had once been the cultivation realm Heya yearned for. It was his life's dream. Now, that dream had finally been fulfilled. Yeah. You haven't disappointed me. Jian Chen nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, Heya glanced at the fortune jade beneath him. Undisguised amazement filled his face as he asked, "Master, may I ask what this is?" I feel like not only was the time I needed to condense my golden core of laws shortened as I sat on it, but even comprehending the laws of the world became countless times easier. The fortune jade was a supreme treasure. It was rare and precious, something that even many grand exalts did not possess. Naturally, Heya would not be able to recognize it. It's best if you don't know about it. Jian Chen seemed to be worried. He did not disclose the existence of the fortune jade to Heya. Heya also understood that the piece of jade beneath him was extraordinary, so he did not probe any further. Afterwards, Jian Chen passed on some matters to Heya before continuing his comprehension of the laws of curses. This time, Jian Chen sat on the fortune jade. Under its assistance, his comprehension of the laws of curses immediately became several times faster. Many of the mysteries of curses that he struggled to understand before became much clearer. Before long, Jian Chen jolted slightly, and his eyes snapped open. I've successfully broken through to God King with the laws of curses. I'm at early God King. 4 of the 7 laws have been comprehended to God King now. Only the laws of creation, the laws of fire, and the laws of corrosion remain. The laws of curses really is extremely profound. With the laws of curses, I only need a hair from the target or something they carry around, and I'll be able to use it as a medium to use the power of curses on them from far away, killing them without leaving any traces behind. As a matter of fact, if the target's strength differs from mine drastically, I won't even need any item or medium at all. I only need to think about them, and I can curse them from afar. With my current strength, I would not need to personally step forward to kill someone like Gongjing Xian. I only need to curse him from outside the Radiant Saint Hall, and he'll be dead. Even in an open confrontation, I can curse my opponent with the laws of curses and reduce their strength to only 80 or 90%. Jian Chen could not help but sneer when he thought about the various wonders of the laws of curses. The laws of curses were indeed nowhere near as powerful as his laws of the sword or laws of strength in an open confrontation, but it could achieve many things that the 2 laws could not. It indirectly increased his battle prowess. In different spaces, the flow of time is completely different. I don't know how long I've spent cultivating either. The gateway to the world of Moon and Star will be opened by the Radiant Saint Hall within a year, so it looks like it's about time for me to leave here. Jian Chen stopped cultivating and thought through everything for a while. He placed the fortune jade under Qing Yishuan again before leaving the Inata Tower. After breaking through to the primordial realm, Heya would be able to help Jianchen quite a bit. As a result, Jianchen did not leave Heya in the Inata Tower. Instead, he got him to remain within the Divine Hall while keeping his presence hidden so that he could take action at any time. After all, during such sensitive times, he could not use the Inata Tower whenever he pleased. Jianchen stowed the Inata Tower away and entered the endless swirling mist with Donglin Yanxue. The swirl was clearly a spatial passageway similar to a teleportation formation. Jianchen felt like he had stepped into a completely different world when he stepped into the swirl. However, this feeling only lasted for an instant before the landscape around him cleared up. He had arrived in a beautiful forest. A single moon and star hung in the sky above his head, shining with resplendent starlight and moonlight. Jianchen knew he had returned to the world of moon and star when he saw the single moon and star above. The world of moon and star was actually the world of grand clarity mentioned by the artifact spirit. This world had been the territory of the artifact spirit's master, the Saint of Grand Clarity, 2 eons ago. However, after such a lengthy period of time, the world of Grand Clarity no longer bore its past glory. The Tao Union Saint's curse also permeates the world of Grand Clarity. Not only has the existence of the curse weakened the world of Grand Clarity, but even the vicious beasts here are affected, thought Jianchen. He closed his eyes to sense his surroundings. Although he was unable to find the curse left behind by the Tao Union Saint in the past with his current level of cultivation, he had grasped the laws of curses after all. Naturally, he could sense something blurry. The reason why the vicious beasts here are protected by the world and can demonstrate power beyond their level of cultivation is probably due to the Saint of Grand Clarity. Although the Saint of Grand Clarity is dead, he was still an expert who had basically become like the laws. Before he passed away, his supreme will influenced this place, setting down some kind of law. The reason why the intelligence of these vicious beasts is limited is probably related to the Tao Union Saint's curse. Jianchen seemed to understand many hidden facts. The world of moon and star no longer seemed as mysterious to him. If I gather the 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalt so that the artifact spirit can break his curse, I will become his master. If that happens, doesn't that mean I will become the master of the world of moon and star as well? Jianchen murmured seriously. He carefully studied the surroundings, and his expression gradually became strange. Chapter 23:16, Encountering Qing Shan again, 1. But even if it's like what I imagined, who knows how long it'll take before I can become the master of the world of moon and Sunday. Collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts is not an easy feat. Jianchen dismissed his thoughts and no longer dwelled on the topic. He lowered his head to observe Donglin Yanxue. Donglin Yanxue lay in his arms. Her eyes remained closed, as she was completely unconscious. She was not aware of the world around her at all. Her wounds haven't worsened, but they haven't improved either. Now that the mist is gone, she should awaken very soon, murmured Jianchen. He looked around him before flying off in one direction. Since Donglin Yanxue was still unconscious, he did not need to continue hiding his strength. He immediately hurried off with his full speed, flying into the depths of the world of moon and star. At the same time, he used the laws of space. He moved extremely fast under its assistance, crossing 1,000 or even 2,000 kilometers in each instance. 10,000 kilometers was only a matter of a few seconds to him. Although I don't know how much time has passed, I need to cover as much ground as I can before Donglin Yanxue awakens so that I can avoid Qing Shan. Although I don't fear Qing Shan, it's impossible for Donglin Yanxue to continue to remain unconscious. Once she wakes up, I won't be able to fight anymore, or I'll expose my identity and lose the chance to enter the Tower of Radiance. I can only hope that Qing Shan has already left the world of moon and star now, Jianchen thought. As he hurried with his full speed, he paid attention to Donglin Yanxue at all times. As soon as she showed signs of waking up, he would need to slow down. Jianchen moved with lightning speed. The powers of space wrapped around him as if he had fused with space, allowing him to demonstrate extreme speed. In just a short period of time, he had appeared several million kilometers away. Suddenly, Jian Chen came to a halt. He stood in a rocky canyon and stared straight ahead. A radiant Saint Master in white robes lay on the ground 100 meters away. Most of his robes were soaked in blood, and he was completely dead. He was an ice-cold corpse. Jian Chen arrived before the corpse and looked at the familiar face. He recognized this radiant Saint Master. He was one of the protectors who had come in with Donglin Yanxue. However, when they were hunted down by Qing Shan towards the end, he had abandoned Donglin Yanxue and fled by himself. Jian Chen felt no sympathy towards the death of this radiant God King. At the same time, he had been expecting these people to die. Qing Shan had entered the world of Moon and Star to erase the candidates who were undertaking a trial here. However, with the grievances between the Martial Soul lineage and the Radiant Saint Hall, these protectors would still face death even if they abandoned their candidates to flee. I wonder how many protectors are still alive in the world of Moon and Star, and if the 4 other candidates are all dead, Jian Chen murmured softly. However, he did not leave the corpse behind. He stowed it in his divine hull. Now that the immortal devouring orchid was gradually maturing, it would need more and more corpses to devour. Instead of abandoning the corpse of the Radiant Saint Master to the vicious beasts here, he would much rather use it to nourish the immortal devouring orchid. Afterwards, Jian Chen changed the landscape so that it seemed like a vicious beast had passed by to cover his traces before leaving. Once the world of Moon and Star opens up, the elders will definitely scour this entire place. It's better if I'm cautious at such a sensitive time. Jian Chen continued on his way with Donglin Yanxue in his arms. As he proceeded, he found the nests of many vicious beasts. Perhaps due to the strange mist, all the nests were empty. The vicious beasts that lived there had already fled far away, and they still had not returned. Clearly, the vicious beasts were extremely fearful of the mist. Even after the mist dispersed, they still had not returned. There are quite a few radiant origin pearls in the territories of the vicious beasts. However, every single one of them has been placed there purposefully by elders. They have a clear record of the number, so I can't take any of them. Jian Chen felt that it was a pity. He could sense the pure origin energy of Radiant Saint Force within the Radiant Origin Pearls. If used to cultivate, it would greatly benefit any Radiant Saint Master. Before long, Donglin Yanxue finally woke up. As soon as she did, Jian Chen slowed down. He traveled at the speed that a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core should possess. As a result, he felt like he had become a snail compared to before. This is the world of Moon and Star. Changyang, how did we made it out of the mist? Donglin Yanxue asked as soon as she roused. I don't know. I just kept on walking, and we made it out. The mist is very strange. Its appearance unsettled the vicious beasts. Didn't you come across any dangers in there? Donglin Yanxue was curious. She had fainted very quickly after they entered the mist, so she had no idea what had happened in there. There weren't any. Perhaps the mist poses a threat to the vicious beasts, but not to us. Jian Chen casually made up some lies. The mist was actually a fusion of the artifact spirit's power and the powers of the curse. He believed that no one knew about its existence apart from him and the sword spirits. The mist shouldn't be that simple. If I make it out alive, I have to report this to the elders. Jian Chen carried Donglin Yanxue and covered ground for a day before finding a cave to rest in. He acted like he was recovering. Fortunately, we didn't come across any vicious beasts along the way. However, who knows if our greatest problem, Qing Shan, has left or not. I hope he has departed from the world of Moon and Star. Donglin Yanxue leaned against the cave wall powerlessly. Currently, she was very worried. Due to the strange mist, many vicious beasts had fled the region, so it became a large, safe expanse in the world of Moon and Star. She had stopped worrying too much about the vicious beasts. However, Qing Shan's existence made her uneasy. We probably stayed in the mist for a long time. The world of Moon and Star should open up soon. Perhaps Qing Shan has already left, Jian Chen said as he acted like he was recovering. But very soon, his expression changed. His powerful soul had already detected Qing Shan's presence. Even though Qing Shan was not giving off his terrifying presence purposefully, he was not trying to conceal it either. He currently flew in a straight line towards Jian Chen. Oh no, Qing Shan is actually still in the world of moon and star. Not only is he here, but he has even found my precise location. Just how did he achieve that? Jian Chen's heart sank. He looked at Donglin Yanxue who sat nearby, and the light in his eyes flickered. Donglin Yanxue was still conscious right now. As soon as he started fighting, he would directly expose his identity. He had considered knocking Donglin Yanxue unconscious, but once she woke up and thought about it slightly, his strength would still be exposed to her. After all, Donglin Yanxue had a peak 4-colored soul core. Even though she was injured, she could not be knocked unconscious easily by a radiant Saint Master with a 1-colored soul core. As a result, he would basically be telling Donglin Yanxue that he was not as simple as a radiant Saint Master with a 1-colored soul core if he did that. Chapter 23:17, Encountering Qing Shan again. 2. Do I really have to expose myself? Jian Chen glanced at Donglin Yanxue in an undetectable manner before looking outside the cave. The light in his eyes flickered as he weighed the advantages and disadvantages. However, a sliver of surprise flashed through his eyes shortly after. Although he was still 1,000,000 kilometers away from Qing Shan, the latter was like a lantern in the dark to Jian Chen, as he did not conceal his presence at all. Consequently, Jian Chen could clearly sense his location at all times. At this moment, Jian Chen sensed that Qing Shan had actually stopped 1,000,000 kilometers away and did not get any closer. Qing Shan clearly knows our precise location, but he hasn't come. Instead, he's watching from afar. What is he trying to do? Jian Chen was puzzled by Qing Shan's actions. After a moment of hesitation, Jian Chen looked towards Donglin Yanxue and said, "Rest here for now. I'll go check on the situation outside." With that, Jian Chen left the cave. Donglin Yanxue leaned against the wall powerlessly as she watched Jian Chen leave. She had mixed feelings. Jian Chen condensed a pair of radiant wings first after leaving the cave. He traveled 10,000 kilometers with a speed that matched his identity as a Radiant Saint Master before exposing his cultivation as a fighter and flying directly towards Qing Shan. He moved extremely quickly, crossing 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. A while later, Jian Chen appeared before Qing Shan. He stood 100 meters away. Qing Shan sat on a rock with his legs crossed. He seemed towering like a mountain, giving off the feeling that he could hold up the sky. A powerful presence revolved around him. "You've come." Qing Shan looked at Jian Chen calmly. In that moment, he seemed like a dormant volcano. He seemed calm on the surface, but he had astonishing power deep down. Jian Chen frowned slightly. Originally, he thought his battle with Qing Shan would continue, so he was already mentally prepared to fight Qing Shan. However, when he saw Qing Shan again, he sensed no battle intent from this supreme god king at all. He sensed no killing intent either. He actually became rather puzzled about Qing Shan's intentions. "You and the candidate, Donglin Yanxue, have already vanished for 8 months. I have a secret technique that can find all the Radiant Saint Masters in the world of moon and star. I searched the entire place several times during those 8 months. Let alone Radiant God Kings, even many elders do not have the ability to avoid being found by me, but you and Donglin Yanxue truly vanished. It was like you were no longer in the world of moon and star. I only found your traces again recently." Qing Shan looked at Jian Chen calmly. He seemed to be studying him closely. Jian Chen stood with his hands behind his back 100 meters away. His presence was sharp, making it seem like an invisible sword had condensed around him. He radiated with cold sword chi as he said, "I never thought you would have a secret technique that can find all the Radiant Saint Masters in the world of moon and star. In other words, all the Radiant Saint Masters that have entered this place are done for because of you? Aside from Donglin Yanxue, the candidates are all dead. I've killed 41 of the 44 Radiant God Kings who entered this place as well. Although Qing Shan's knowledge of the Radiant Saint Hall could not be described as complete, it was close. He knew a lot. He looked at Jian Chen deeply and continued, originally, I planned on slaughtering all the candidates and Radiant Saint Masters who entered the world of Moon and Star so that the Radiant Saint Hall would have to go without a chosen saint this generation. It would be an extremely awkward matter to them, and it would be utterly humiliating. However, your existence has changed my mind. It's not that I can't find the 3 remaining Radiant God Kings. I can kill them without any difficulty. However, I've decided to spare them because of you, so they can leave here alive. Qing Shan, we don't know each other, so why are you sparing them because of me? Jian Chen asked. Qing Shan smiled mysteriously and replied, it's for a very simple reason. If everyone in the world of Moon and Star dies aside from you and Donglin Yanxue, it'll become a mystery why the 2 of you were able to avoid being hunted down. Those elders or even vice leaders will definitely look into the matter. Even if you can explain it, there'll be increased risk of exposure under their investigations. But if I leave some more people alive, it'll cover you even better and disperse the doubts of the elders. They'll believe that you survived due to luck. Are you helping me? Why are you helping me? Jian Chen asked in confusion. Qing Shan stood up. He stared at Jian Chen with shining eyes and said seriously, that's because you're a part of our martial soul lineage. Ever since the ancient times, our martial soul lineage has treats one another like siblings, like we're a family. As long as you wield martial soul force, you are a successor of our martial soul lineage, regardless of your identity or race. You are someone blessed by the heavens. You possess martial soul force. Even though it's still extremely weak, that cannot change the fact that you're a successor to our martial soul lineage. As a result, we aren't enemies. We're close brothers instead. Jian Chen was taken aback by Qing Shan's reply. He knew he possessed martial soul force, but he did not know the martial soul lineage hid a side like that. That's absurd. I may possess martial soul force, but I have no ties with your martial soul lineage, said Jian Chen. You're wrong. Every single person who wields martial soul force is created by the world. That's the same as Radiant Saint Masters. Whether a person has the potential to become a Radiant Saint Master is determined the moment they're born. It's clear-cut, unlike fighters who can cultivate their way up from being mortals. Even ordinary people with no talent at all can change themselves through heavenly resources and various other means, nurturing themselves after they're born. As a result, there's a saying that Radiant Saint Masters are naturally created. Our martial soul force follows the same principle, except it's much more difficult to give birth to someone with martial soul force. Every single person who possesses martial soul force is an existence blessed by the heavens, and in each aeon, it's impossible for these existences to exceed the single digits in number. It's exactly because of how few of us there are that we're secretly protected by the world. The world has formed a special law, secretly guiding and uniting the wielders of martial soul force. Originally, I was the same as you. I cultivated alone and wandered the saints' world alone. But in the end, out of pure chance, I happened upon the martial soul mountain. And it's not just me. Even my senior brothers and sisters on the martial soul mountain and the past seniors who have already passed away all became members of the martial soul mountain through various means. There have been no exceptions in history. Qing Shan arrived before Jian Chen and stared at him with brimming interest as he said, perhaps this secret arrangement is a form of protection from the world. Our martial soul lineage is a unique legacy. We have limited members, and it's impossible to acquire the usage of martial soul force at birth. We can't break through to Grand Prime either. As a result, the martial soul lineage is an extremely frail legacy in the saints' world. The heavens wants us to gather together, for us to unite and stand strong. Chapter 23:18, Martial Soul Mountain. I'm wanted by quite a few powerful experts right now. If you let me become a member of the martial soul lineage, aren't you afraid of me bringing you trouble? Jian Chen asked. He knew Qing Shan would be able to understand what he was hinting at and the matters that were involved. With Qing Shan's wit, he had already realized Jian Chen's true identity when they fought. Although members of our martial soul lineage cannot break through to Grand Prime, you must never underestimate us. We only have 7 people, but we fear no one on the desolate plain aside from the Celestial Sword Saint. None of them can threaten us. Even if all the peak experts band together, we can just camp on the martial soul mountain. As long as we stay there, even the Celestial Sword Saint won't be able to do anything to us. Let alone the Celestial Sword Saint, even existences slightly more powerful than him won't be able to enter the martial soul mountain. I think you'll be in dire straits once you become surrounded by the peak experts of the desolate plain because of the Inata Tower, and even if you flee the desolate plain, they'll search for you endlessly. However, as long as you reach the martial soul mountain, they won't be able to do anything to you, Qing Shan guaranteed with great confidence. How powerful is the martial soul mountain? How can it stop the Celestial Sword Saint or even existences greater than the Celestial Sword Saint? Jian Chen's face changed. The Celestial Sword Saint was an existence that deterred even the Azure Peng King from setting foot on the desolate plain. The Martial Soul Mountain is where members of our Martial Soul lineage reside safely. It's exactly because of the Martial Soul Mountain that our lineage is able to exist throughout history and not perish. The only problem is that the Martial Soul Mountain can only be treated as our last line of defense. It protects our lineage from perishing, but it cannot be taken around by us. Qing Shan looked at Jian Chen with undisguised admiration and continued, I know you've joined the Radiant Saint Hall under a fake identity and protected Donglin Yanxue during the trial between candidates to enter the Tower of Radiance. Indeed, the Tower of Radiance is a supreme treasure of the Radiant Saint Hall. It was left behind by a sovereign of the world from the Radiant Saint Hall who had become on par with a Grand Exalt. It hides a great fortune for Radiant Saint Masters, and all the cultivation methods and radiant arts that have existed come from there. Even everything that the leader and vice leaders of the Radiant Saint Hall know come from the Tower of Radiance. It's an endless treasure trove and a place that can alter the fate of any and all hallowed Saint Masters. But I must tell you that the great organizations gathered on the desolate plain have already begun to look for you through blood tests, so as long as you remain on the desolate plain, you will be found sooner or later. If you return to the Radiant Saint Hall with Donglin Yanxue, you will face the risk of being exposed. Once you're exposed, I think you know very well just what you will be facing. Do you have a better way for me to enter the Tower of Radiance? Jian Chen remained calm. He had been expecting this. Our martial soul lineage opposes the Radiant Saint Hall. This is a grievance that has accumulated from our seniors with each generation. We can no longer reconcile, so I can't help you enter the Tower of Radiance. However, as the 8th successor of the martial soul lineage, what you truly should be controlling is martial soul force. You don't need those cultivation methods in the Tower of Radiance. Although some cultivation methods in there are extremely powerful, enough to be described as world-shaking, you're not a regular hallowed Saint Master in the end. And the successors of our martial soul lineage cannot break through to Grand Prime even with the greatest cultivation method from the Tower of Radiance, so there's no need for you to take all this risk to enter that place. Leave with me and return to the martial soul mountain. That would be the safest and most reliable thing to do. Qing Shan looked at Jian Chen with shining eyes and did his best to persuade him. The cultivation methods and knowledge on comprehension from the past seniors of the martial soul lineage are there. They're the greatest treasure of our martial soul mountain. They can allow you to gain a clearer recognition of martial soul force and allow you to grasp the method to make martial soul force grow. You'll be able to use these resources as you wish if you return to the martial soul mountain with me. Jian Chen immediately became tempted. As he had never found a suitable cultivation method for martial soul force, his martial soul force remained at a rudimentary level. It was so weak that it posed no threat to God Kings at all. He had considered creating his own cultivation method for martial soul force, but that would require lengthy experiments and verification. It was easier said than done. The time he had used to grow up to his current level was extremely short. It had only been a few hundred years. He had basically spent all of that time on his chaotic body and the laws of the sword. He had no time or effort into creating his own cultivation method for martial soul force. As a result, his martial soul force remained the same as before. It had not grown at all. But now with Qing Shan's appearance, he finally obtained an opportunity to make his martial soul force grow. Naturally, it was a tempting offer. But in the end, Jian Chen still shook his head gently. He turned down Qing Shan and said, "I've spent so much effort hiding in the Radiant Saint Hall just to enter the Tower of Radiance. Now that the Tower of Radiance is basically a step away from me, how can I just give up on it? I won't give up on the Tower of Radiance." Qing Shan did not try to persuade him anymore after seeing how Jian Chen had made up his mind. He said, "I'll teach you a technique. When you want to come to the Martial Soul Mountain, you can use this technique to sense its location. Our Martial Soul Mountain isn't located on the 49 Great Plains or the 81 Great Planets. Instead, it drifts through the vast outer space. It's very difficult to find the Martial Soul Mountain without its precise location given your strength. As our martial soul lineage has extremely few people, each addition is a huge matter. As a result, I must let my 6 seniors know about your appearance. As for the legacies for martial soul force, they're all mental imprints. You can only accept them on the Martial Soul Mountain, so I can't help you with it." With that, Qing Shan left. He ripped open the space of the world of moon and star through a special method, forming a spatial tunnel. He vanished through it. Jian Chen did not leave immediately. He sat down to properly digest everything he had learnt from Qing Shan. Only then did he return to the cave where Donglin Yanxue was. Donglin Yanxue sat alone in the gloomy cave, leaning against the wall powerlessly. She stared straight at the entrance. She was alone after Jian Chen's departure. Injured and basically unable to protect herself, she immediately became nervous and unsettled. Uneasiness filled her heart. Dazed, Donglin Yanxue could not help but think of the days when Jian Chen had carried her as they fled through this world filled with danger. Against Qing Shan, the 8 radiant god kings that she should have been able to count on the most abandoned her without any hesitation, fleeing for their lives. She was left her alone and helpless. Yet, Chang Yang, who was clearly the weakest, always remained by her side. Even when she had now become a burden, he still did not abandon her, going through thick and thin together instead. This deeply touched Donglin Yanxue. These matters also allowed Donglin Yanxue to truly see what kind of person Jian Chen was. At this moment, there were a series of footsteps outside. Donglin Yanxue immediately became anxious as she called out, "Who is it?" "It's me." Jian Chen's voice rang out from outside. With that, he entered the cave. Donglin Yanxue immediately became relieved when she heard Jian Chen's voice. She asked, "How's the situation outside?" "It's all peaceful." Jian Chen sat back down where he was before. The light in his eyes flickered as he said in thought, "The strange mist scared away all the vicious beasts. Even though the mist is gone now, the vicious beasts still aren't bold enough to return to their territories, so I didn't come across a single one when I checked the surroundings. We were trapped in the mist for a very long time earlier. Although I don't know how long it was, it seems like it was almost a year. The gateway will open again before long. We only need to wait here quietly. But the greatest threat to us is not the vicious beasts. It's Qing Shan." Donglin Yanxue did not lighten up at all. She had already given up on searching for radiant origin pearls. She only hoped to leave here alive. Qing Shan might have left the world of moon and star. After all, so much time has passed. If he doesn't leave and the elders of the Radiant Saint Hall flood in when the gateway opens, he'll be done for, Jian Chen said calmly. That's just your guess. What if Qing Shan hasn't left? Chang Yang, I feel like we'll be slightly safer if we hide even further away, Donglin Yanxue said in worry. All right. Let's continue on our way then. Jian Chen was helpless. In order to avoid Donglin Yanshue's suspicions, he could only fly further away while carrying her. Now, Donglin Yanshue no longer rejected Jian Chen like before. When Jian Chen carried her, she actually experienced a strange feeling. Time passed silently. Unknowingly, the year-long trial had come to an end. With Elder Mu Zhong at the lead, over a dozen elders stood in a single line on the stage within the sacred hall. Of course, since the Radiant Saint Hall was a peak organization on the desolate plain, they had far more elders than that. Only a portion of them stood on the stage. The various lords of the peaks gathered below the stage. Some hallowed Saint Master who were not Radiant Saint Kings but possessed extraordinary status were there as well. Jian Chen's junior sister, Biyao, also happened to be one of them. The year has elapsed. Senior brother is finally going to come out of the world of moon and star. I wonder what kind of world it is. I have to properly ask senior brother when he comes out. Biyao stood in the crowd and stared at Elder Mu Zhong. Her face was filled with eagerness and some excitement. I hereby announce that the year-long trial in the world of sun and moon has ended. Which 3 of the 5 candidates will be eliminated will be decided by the number of radiant origin pearls they've obtained. Now, let's open the gateway. As Elder Mu Zhong called out, the ancient seal in his hand immediately emitted a powerful pulse of energy. He waved it at the sky, and the space there immediately pulsed. It twisted into a gateway. The gateway has been opened. Come out, candidates. Elder Mu Zhong called out. His old voice boomed through the gateway, echoing in the world of moon and star to a range of 1,000,000 kilometers. Elder Mu Zhong was the oldest elder in the Radiant Saint Hall. Not only did he hold great prestige, but he was also one of the 3 strongest elders. He was equivalent to a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, making him only second to the 8 vice leaders in terms of status. As the gateway opened, all the radiant god kings gathered below looked at the gate in the sky and began discussing. It has finally ended. I wonder which 2 candidates out of Gongjing Xian, Shida, and Donglin Yanshue will move on to the next round and contend for the position of chosen saint. Isn't it obvious? It has to be Gongjing Xian and Xian Bin. After all, they were the first 2 to condense a late 4-colored soul core out of the 5 candidates, not necessarily. Although Gongjing Xian and Xian Na were the first, and Shida aren't weak either. They also have late 4-colored soul cores. How can you forget about Donglin Yanshue? You can't forget that her strength skyrocketed in the past 2 years, basically breaking through a minor cultivation realm each year. In just 2 short years, she went from an early 4-colored soul core to a late 4-colored soul core. It was completely illogical. Donglin Yanshue's abrupt advance was probably through relying on something foreign pulling her up. Her foundation is nowhere near as firm as Gongjing Xian's or Xian Bin's. They can't be compared. Don't forget that there's Chang Yang beside Donglin Yanshue. Although his cultivation is weak, he's still someone related to Vice Leader Xian Zhan. Who knows what trump cards he is hiding? If he did all he could to assist Donglin Yanshue, we really wouldn't know who would place first in the first trial. As they waited patiently, the Radiant God Kings began an intense conversation around the 5 candidates. The elders on the stage all looked at the gateway eagerly. Time passed second by second. The gateway was gaping, but unexpectedly, no one emerged. There's something off, Elder Mu Zhong frowned. His eyes seemed to shine as he stared straight at the gateway. The unusual situation suddenly made him uneasy. Elder Lu Shui, Elder Xia Feng, go into the world of moon and star and check on the situation immediately, Elder Mu Zhong said to 2 elders beside him sternly. Immediately, 2 elders rose up. The laws of the hallowed descended, and with a flash, they disappeared into the gateway. All the peak lords gathered around the stage seemed to sense that something was off as well. They all calmed down as they stared straight at the gateway. Very soon, Elder Lu Shui and Elder Xia Feng returned. They landed on the stage with ugly faces and said grimly, "Horrible news. We can't sense Elder He Tian's presence at all, and we've found Elder He Tian's blood and the traces of a battle nearby. Elder He Tian might have met a bad end. What did you say? Elder Mu Zhong's face changed drastically. Chapter 23:20. Heavy losses. It was not just Elder Mu Zhong. Even the other elders lost their usual composure. Their faces became extremely ugly and grave. Impossible. We've screened through all the vicious beasts in the entire world of Moon and Star. The few vicious beasts that are at the primordial realm have all been slain by us. There are only existences with battle prowess at God King. It's definitely impossible for these vicious beasts to pose any threat to Elder He Tian, that's right. It's impossible for a vicious beast to threaten He Tian. Even if one of them had broken through recently and reached the primordial realm, they won't be He Tian's opponent. What exactly has happened in there? Why haven't we received news from Elder He Tian? Did something huge happen in the world of Moon and Star such that even Elder He Tian couldn't contact us in time? Oh no, the 5 candidates are still in there. The elders on the stage all called out. Their faces changed rapidly as they became extremely grim. They felt an ill omen. All elders, enter the world of Moon and Star immediately. Even if we have to dig deep, we have to find out what has happened. Scour the entire world of Moon and Star. We must search for the candidates who took part in the trial. It doesn't matter whether they're alive or dead, I want to see them. Go. Elder Mu Zhong called out. His face had darkened from anger. He was basically furious. The Radiant Saint Hall would have a chosen saint once every millennium. This was an ancient tradition of the Radiant Saint Hall that had been maintained for who knows how long. All the candidates for the current generation had entered the world of Moon and Star to undergo a trial, and they would select the chosen saint based on the results. If all 5 of them met their end, would that not mean the Radiant Saint Hall would have to go without a chosen saint? Although this would have no impact on the Radiant Saint Hall's strength at all, they were still a renowned peak organization on the desolate plain after all. If they really did face an awkward situation where they had no chosen saint, it would be extremely humiliating. They would be disgraced. Immediately, all the elders on the stage aside from Elder Mu Zhong entered the world of Moon and Star. The huge square fell deathly silent. The radiant god kings gathered there all realized that something unexpected had happened to the trial this time. They all stood below the stage as they waited quietly. The atmosphere was rather suffocating. Before long, 2 elders flew out from the world of Moon and Star. One of them carried a bloodied corpse. They carefully placed the corpse on the stage and said sorrowfully, Elder He Tian has passed away. Unsurprisingly, the corpse belonged to Elder He Tian, who watched over the world of Moon and Star, serving as the last line of protection for the 5 candidates. **T. Elder Mu Zhong's heart sank completely when he saw Elder He Tian's corpse. His face became extremely grim, and he immediately sent a sliver of the senses of his soul into the depths of the sacred hall. Very soon, several other elders flew over and landed on the stage. These elders all wore black clothes, and their eyes shone with cold light. They were the upper echelon of the disciplinary and penal halls in the Radiant Saint Hall. It's Martial Soul Force. Elder He Tian has been slain by a member of the Martial Soul lineage. From the wounds, it's probably Qing Shan of the Martial Soul lineage. Only Qing Shan out of the 7 of them needs to fight Elder He Tian for so long to kill him. The elders of the disciplinary and penal halls said emotionlessly and coldly. Their eyes shone with killing intent. Another one of our elders have died to Qing Shan's hands. Let's go and properly search the world of Moon and Star, an elder from the disciplinary hall growled. Qing Shan has committed monstrous crimes. We cannot spare him. The elders from the 2 halls surged with hostility as they entered the world of Moon and Star as well. It was also at this moment that elders began to flow out from the world of Moon and Star. They carried out corpses one after another. All of these corpses belonged to radiant god kings. They were the protectors of the candidates. They had all died to Qing Shan's hands. These corpses were scattered across the world of moon and star, but under the personal search of the elders, they had retrieved the corpses one after another. Looking at the corpses that only increased on the stage, Elder Mu Zhong's face sank even more. Surging fury and terrifying killing intent bubbled within him. Gongzheng Xian is dead. At this moment, another elder flew out from the gateway with a corpse. He was heavy-hearted. To no surprise, the corpse belonged to one of the 5 candidates, Gongzheng Xian. Heavens, it's actually Gongzheng Xian. Gongzheng Xian is actually dead. Gongzheng Xian's death immediately caused an uproar below the stage. Senior brother, you have to be safe. You have to return alive. Within the crowd, Biyao paled. She clenched her hands as she prayed inside. She was extremely worried. Anyone could tell that something major had happened to the trial in the world of moon and star this time. She was uncertain whether her second senior was still alive. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure appeared. 2 figures silently arrived on the stage. They were Xian Zhan and Mo He of the 8 vice leaders. Greetings, vice leaders. Their appearance immediately made all the radiant god kings below bow. Even Elder Mu Zhong on the stage bowed as a greeting like everyone else. The gazes of the 2 vice leaders were fixed on the corpses on the stage. Their faces sank. The vice leaders held great status in the Radiant Saint Hall. They rarely made an appearance. Even something as important as selecting a chosen saint was completely left up to the elders to handle. The vice leaders would never ask about it personally. At most, they would pay the slightest bit of attention secretly. But now, with the deaths of so many protectors and a candidate, even the great vice leaders had been alarmed. The elders of the Radiant Saint Hall radiated with powerful presence in the world of moon and star as they moved through the air with lightning speed. They used the powerful senses of their souls to pierce the sky and earth, scouring the entire place. All the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star, regardless of strength, shrunk up in their nests. They all trembled in fear. At the same time, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue sat quietly within an extremely well-hidden underground cavern several tens of thousand kilometers away. Now, Donglin Yanxue had already settled down from her original unease. She had become confident that Qing Shan had left since they were not found after so long. She believed she could leave here alive. Changyang, how long is there until the year ends? Donglin Yanxue asked gently. During the year of hardship, Jian Chen had remained beside her the entire time. They had truly gone through thick and thin together, causing Donglin Yanxue to hold special feelings for Jian Chen. As a matter of fact, she began to rely on him ever so slightly. It should be soon, Jian Chen said at ease. He remained unflustered the entire time. This was just his natural bearing. He had no idea that the presence he gave off would leave a sturdy, reliable impression in Donglin Yanxue's heart. And at this moment, the cavern where the 2 of them hid suddenly shook. The thick earth above them had been blasted apart by a powerful force. Radiant Saint Force shone with dazzling light, dyeing the gloomy cave white in a single instance. A white-robed, middle-aged woman hovered in the air, looking down at them. Even though she stood high up, she showed no arrogance at all. Instead, she clearly became relieved as she gazed down. Master. Donglin Yanxue raised her head instinctively. When she saw the middle-aged woman, she immediately became overjoyed. She called out and tried to stand up. However, she was still injured, and she had been incapacitated long ago. Not only did she fail to stand up, but she even staggered and almost fell over. Fortunately, Jian Chen had fast arms and caught her in time. The middle-aged woman was one of the elders in the Radiant Saint Hall as well as Donglin Yanxue's master, Mu Shuai. With a flash, Mu Shuai appeared before Donglin Yanxue in a single instance. Her face was filled with undisguised delight as she said in great relief, "As long as you're alive, as long as you're alive." "I had thought you, as if Donglin Yanxue had found the only person she could rely on. She hugged Mu Shui tightly as she sobbed slightly. Master, soon after we entered the world of moon and star, Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage appeared. He hunted us down. I had even thought I would never get to see you again. I know. Yanxue, there's no need to be afraid now. We already have many elders in the world of moon and star. They're searching for Qing Shan everywhere. Once we find him, he's dead for sure, Mu Shui said gently, but Jian Chen clearly detected heavy killing intent in her voice. Clearly, this was killing intent directed towards Qing Shan. Not only did Qing Shan's intrusion on the world of moon and star get in the way of the selection of the chosen saint, but he had injured or killed the 5 candidates as well. This made the Radiant Saint Hall furious. Let's go. Let's leave. Although your wounds are severe, you'll be able to recover very soon as long as we return to the Sacred Hall, Mu Shui said to Donglin Yanxue. Then she glanced at Jian Chen, who stood there silently, and said rather amiably, Chang Yang, thank you for taking care of Yanxue these days. Afterwards, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue left the world of moon and star under Mu Shui's lead, returning to the Radiant Saint Hall. Many corpses were piled on the stage now. Not only were there over 30 Radiant God Kings, but even the corpses of the chosen saints amounted to 3. Out of the 5 candidates, Gongjing Xian, Shide, and Endo were dead. Only the fates of Donglin Yanxue and Xian Bin remained unknown. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Radiant Saint Hall became extremely suffocating. Even the faces of the 2 vice leaders had darkened. At this moment, another elders flew out from the gateway with a corpse in hand. He placed it down gently on the stage and said painfully, Xian Bin is dead as well. In that instance, the gazes of Xian Zhan and Mo he became piercing. Everyone could clearly sense a terrifying killing intent, enough to destroy worlds, begin to accumulate within the 2 vice leaders. Elder Mu Zhong's face became extremely pained as well. He murmured in a daze, 4 of the 5 candidates are already dead. It looks like Donglin Yanxue has met her end as well. Are we really going to go without a chosen saint this time? No. Not all of the candidates are dead. At this moment, a cry rang out from the gateway. Mu Shui flew out, and beside her were Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue wrapped in Radiant Saint Force. Yanxue is still alive. Mu Shui directly landed on the stage with Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue. The Radiant Saint Force dispersed and immediately exposed Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue before everyone. As soon as he saw Donglin Yanxue, Elder Mu Zhong's despaired eyes lit up with hope again. Even the faces of the 2 vice leaders eased up slightly. Clearly, a single candidate was worth far more than the Radiant God Kings in their eyes. After all, once the Radiant Saint Hall lost all of its candidates, its ancient tradition would be broken in this generation. The humiliation would be immeasurable. Before long, a second group of survivors were found by the elders. 3 Radiant God Kings hiding in an extremely distant region of the world of moon and star had managed to survive this disaster as well. Of course, the 3 of them only survived because Qing Shan had spared them. His intention was to reduce the suspicions towards Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue's survival. Afterwards, the world of moon and star was investigated by the experts of the disciplinary and penal halls. They wanted to find Qing Shan's method of entering the world of moon and star. As for Jian Chen, Donglin Yanxue, and the 3 surviving Radiant God Kings, elders personally visited them to learn about the situation. Jian Chen answered their questions about the world of moon and star selectively. Everything he said only included what he had experienced when he was acting like he only had a one-colored soul core. He disclosed an extremely limited amount of information. Chapter 23-22, Running out of time. Jian Chen only had a one-colored soul core, so they obviously did not go into too much detail with their questions. The elders believed the 3 surviving Radiant God Kings could help them understand what happened better. Fantastic. Senior brother, you actually made it out alive. You have no idea at all. When I saw so many powerful peak lords dead, I thought even senior brother met his end. Biyao immediately appeared beside Jian Chen as soon as he emerged from the sacred hall. She was still shaken. Oh right. Senior brother, what exactly happened in the world of Moon and Star? Did you really encounter Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage? Biyao raised her head slightly to look at Jian Chen. She was extremely curious. Why do you care about that? You better cultivate properly instead. Becoming powerful as soon as possible is crucial for establishing yourself. I'm just curious. Just tell me, senior brother. Originally, the trial in the world of Moon and Star should have only been the first stage of the competition. After this first trial, 3 candidates would be directly eliminated depending on how many Radiant Origin Pearls they had collected. The second stage would be a competition between the 2 remaining candidates to decide who would become the chosen saint in the end. Only then would the competition come to a close. But due to the sudden changes to the situation in the world of Moon and Star, only Donglin Yanxue managed to survive out of the 5 candidates. She became the only candidate in the Radiant Saint Hall, so the second stage naturally became unnecessary. Donglin Yanxue had also formally become the chosen saint of the generation. Once she became the chosen saint, not only did it mean an elevation in status, but it also meant the Radiant Saint Hall would nurture her for the next 1,000 years without sparing any effort. As a result, the position of chosen saint was heavily coveted by all Radiant Saint Masters in the Radiant Saint Hall. It was an opportunity for them to evolve. Thanks to the assistance of the elders, Donglin Yanxue recovered from her wounds in under a day. 3 days later, the formal ceremony for inheriting the position as chosen saint began. As Donglin Yanxue took up the position of chosen saint, Jian Chen had already returned to the soaring clouds peak. He sat there as he stared at the sacred hall that stood above the clouds quietly. His gaze was deep. Basically 99% of all the low-level Radiant Saint Masters have had their blood tested in the Radiant Saint Hall, and they possess blood medallions now. However, the examinations in the Radiant Saint Hall are becoming stricter and stricter. The blood medallion is gradually evolving into a symbol of status. It looks like I really don't have much time left in the Radiant Saint Hall, Jian Chen thought as he sat on a rock outside his dwelling. He had already comprehended the laws of space to God King, so his understanding of space was extremely deep. His vision could pierce through many things. Even without using the senses of his soul, he could see 1,000,000 kilometers away. As a result, although he had never taken a single step away from the soaring clouds peak during these 3 days, he knew many of the matters that had happened in the Radiant Saint Hall. He could clearly see the many Radiant Saint Masters carrying blood medallions and could also see the envoys of the Radiant Saint Hall check the blood medallions of each and every low-level Radiant Saint Master under the watch of fighters from outside. All people who had not gone through the blood test, regardless of their status or background, would be forcefully tested. Currently, he truly felt that time was pressing. The time that remained for him was becoming lesser and lesser. At this moment, Jian Chen's expression changed slightly. He looked at the 3 black-robed envoys flying directly towards the soaring clouds peak with an azure-clothed fighter. Jian Chen could not be more familiar with the group. They were one of the small groups responsible for holding the blood tests. I can't run into them, Jian Chen made a quick decision. He drifted off the rock. Concealing his presence and erasing his traces, he left the soaring clouds peak in the opposite direction, avoiding them. Soon after Jian Chen's departure, the 4 people arrived on the soaring clouds peak. One of the envoys asked, "Is disciple of the soaring clouds peak, Changyang, present? Why are you looking for senior brother?" At this moment, a white light shot over and stopped before the 4 of them. It revealed Biyao. Biyao had just come from the sacred hall and was about to go find Jian Chen on the soaring clouds peak. She just so happened to run into this group. Changyang still hasn't gone through the blood test. We've naturally come to carry it out, said a black-robed envoy. Oh. I just happened to be looking for senior brother to discuss our experiences with cultivation. Come with me, Biyao nodded and went to Jian Chen's dwelling with the 4 people. Biyao directly touched the barrier outside the dwelling and called for Jian Chen. Obviously, she received no reply. Strange. Isn't senior brother on the soaring clouds peak? Or is he in secluded cultivation? A while later, Biyao frowned and wondered to herself. The three envoys and the fighter stood nearby. They did not become impatient at all. If that's the case, we'll just wait here then. All the other disciples below God King have undergone the blood test in the Radiant Saint Hall. We just need to check Changyang now, said an envoy. If it were in the past, they would have never had the patience to wait there. They would even destroy the formation and barge into the dwelling. But ever since Jian Chen exposed the fact that he held Vice Leader Xian Zhan's medallion a year ago, his status had changed in the Radiant Saint Hall. These envoys obviously did not dare to offend Jian Chen over a small matter like this. Jian Chen hid in the clouds several dozen kilometers away. He saw everything that happened on the soaring clouds peak. With his powerful senses, he even heard everything the envoy said. He immediately became stern. I never thought I would already be the last one. I can't return to the soaring clouds peak, Jian Chen frowned. After a moment of thought, he suddenly looked towards the sacred hall before rising up and flying towards it. By the time Jian Chen arrived at the sacred hall, the ceremony had already ended. The lords of the various peaks gathered in the square had all dispersed. Jian Chen held Vice Leader Xian Zhan's medallion and passed through the strict security smoothly, directly arriving at Donglin Yenshue's temporary residence in the sacred hall. Even the peak lords were forbidden from approaching the chosen saint's residence without permission. However, with the medallion, Jian Chen could even see Vice Leader Xian Zhan whenever he wished, let alone entering the chosen saint's residence. It had to be mentioned that Donglin Yenshue's treatment had improved drastically after she became the chosen saint. Two female disciples who seemed like servants stood beside the entrance to her residence. They were at Donglin Yenshue's disposal at all times. I want to see Donglin Yenshue, Jian Chen directly stated his intentions to the two female servants. Chapter 23-23, The Tower of Radiance opens. This is the chosen saint's personal residence. The two female servants became troubled. They had no idea how to turn him away. The two of them were hallowed saint masters with 5 colored soul cores, making them equivalent to gods. However, they were extremely careful around Changyang despite his 1-colored soul core. They were afraid of offending him. Clearly, they knew that although Jian Chen's cultivation was limited, he had the support of a vice leader, so his status was extraordinary. At this moment, the door opened. Donglin Yenshue walked out gently in her attire as the chosen saint. She looked at Jian Chen, who stood outside, and mixed feelings flashed through her eyes. After hesitating slightly, she dismissed the two female servants and said gently, "Changyang, come in." With that, she turned around and returned to her residence. But in the instant she turned around, her face seemed slightly unnatural. However, she returned to normal very soon. Jian Chen did not think too much about it. He directly entered Donglin Yenshue's residence, closing the door along the way. "Why have you come looking for me?" Donglin Yenshue looked at Jian Chen with her shining, black pupils. "When can we enter the Tower of Radiance?" Jian Chen directly asked. "You've come looking for me because of the Tower of Radiance? Not because of anything else?" Donglin Yenshue stared straight at Jian Chen and replied with more questions. "The Tower of Radiance is extremely important to me because it contains all the cultivation methods and knowledge of cultivation from the seniors. It has a direct correlation to my future accomplishments. As a result, I hope to enter the Tower of Radiance as soon as possible," Jian Chen said seriously. "Do you only see the Tower of Radiance?" A sliver of disappointment flashed through Donglin Yenshue's eyes. Jian Chen was slightly surprised by that. He glanced at Donglin Yenshue deeply and said, "Indeed. For a spot into the Tower of Radiance, you should know just how much time and energy I've spent." "Changyang." Donglin Yenshue called out as she stared straight at Jian Chen with her limpid eyes. Her voice became slightly shrill as she said quickly, "I really don't understand. You clearly have a vice leader's medallion in your hands. If you want to enter the Tower of Radiance, you can just ask the vice leader to open it for you. Although there'll be some objections if other vice leaders want to open it for you, it's only a matter of a single sentence from Vice Leader Xian Zhan with his status in the Radiant Saint Hall. Since you need to enter the Radiant Saint Hall so urgently, why did you take the longer path and find me? You even gave me a precious pure soul. I only obtained Vice Leader Xian Zhan's medallion a few days before entering the world of Moon and Star. Moreover, I don't want to owe Vice Leader Xian Zhan too much. As a result, even if I knew Vice Leader Xian Zhan could directly allow me into the Tower of Radiance, I didn't want to trouble him, as I want to obtain that spot through my own efforts, said Jian Chen. Donglin Yanxue stared at Jian Chen with mixed feelings. She actually said nothing for a moment. Even though Jian Chen's mask had given him an ordinary appearance that would not catch any attention if thrown into a crowd, he had already established a great, sturdy image in Donglin Yanxue's heart when they were in the world of Moon and Star. A person's beauty was not their appearance but their true nature. Only a beautiful true nature would be considered as true beauty. Jian Chen's behavior in the world of Moon and Star seemed to allow Donglin Yanxue to see his true nature, so the image he had established in Donglin Yanxue's heart was handsome. A while later, Donglin Yanxue sighed gently. A hint of disappointment filled her heart as she said, I will be using my right to the Tower of Radiance in half a month's time. I'll send someone to contact you when it's time. Half a month? Jian Chen frowned in response, it's too long. Can you do it sooner? The sooner, the better. It would be best if it's tomorrow. Tomorrow? So soon? Donglin Yanxue was surprised. Yeah. It's so soon due to some reasons. Donglin Yanxue, just treat it as helping me out this time. I will remember this favor, Jian Chen said seriously. Looking at how stern Jian Chen was, Donglin Yanxue actually could not turn him down, so she said, all right then. Tomorrow it is. Just like that, Donglin Yanxue had chosen the day the Tower of Radiance would be opening. As the sun rose up the next day, the clouds and mist near the mountains were dyed a deep red. A group of people with Donglin Yanxue at the lead stood near an ancient tower several hundred meters tall on the highest floor of the Radiant Saint Hall. Jian Chen happened to be among them. There were 8 other Radiant God Kings aside from him. They stood in a row with Jian Chen behind Donglin Yanxue. The 8 Radiant God Kings were Donglin Yanxue's newly chosen protectors. They would be responsible for protecting the chosen saint during the millennia Donglin Yanxue held the position. They would completely follow her and serve her. Jian Chen raised his head slightly and studied the white tower before him. The white tower was naturally the Radiant Saint Hall's treasure, the Tower of Radiance. It was completely silver white. It seemed to possess a natural beauty where it was impossible to find any flaws. Although it was a treasure left behind by a Grand Exalt, it gave off no pressure at all. As a result, they even struggled to connect the Tower of Radiance to a Grand Exalt. Don't underestimate this place. As the highest floor in the Sacred Hall, this entire place has been filled with supreme formations. It's said that after the many hardships of the past leaders, they managed to get the Grand Exalt of Ancient Ways to cast down a formation on the level of a Grand Exalt, firmly locking the Tower of Radiance here. It has stopped all experts from eyeing the Tower of Radiance, Donglin Yanxue's voice rang out. Jian Chen nodded gently. He studied every inch of the space there. As expected, an astonishing formation seemed to exist around the Tower of Radiance. The formation was extremely well hidden. If it were not for the changes to Jian Chen's soul after fusing with a strand of chaotic force, he definitely would not have discovered the formation's existence. Donglin Yanxue, have you thought it through? Do you really want to open the Tower of Radiance now? The number of times you can open the Tower of Radiance will only go down once you use it. Elder Mu Zhong appeared silently at this moment, and he stared at Donglin Yanxue with shining eyes. Esteemed Elder Mu Zhong, I've already made my decision. I formally use my special right to the Tower of Radiance, Donglin Yanxue said without any hesitation. Elder Mu Zhong nodded and no longer said anything more. In the next moment, two tremendous, terrifying energies descended from the sky like floods, pouring into the Tower of Radiance with horrifying pressure. The Tower of Radiance immediately lit up. The Grand Exalt's formation that locked up the Tower of Radiance seemed to change slowly, causing the invisible formation to part. It exposed the entrance to the Tower of Radiance. Vice Leader Xian Zhan and Vice Leader Mo He have opened the Tower of Radiance for you. You can go in now, Elder Mu Zhong called out. Chapter 23-24, Ancient Imprints. As Elder Mu Zhong called out, Donglin Yanxue immediately made her way towards the Tower of Radiance. She disappeared into its entrance very soon. After Donglin Yanxue, the 8 newly chosen protectors all showed reverence. They entered in awe and veneration. As Jian Shen was the weakest out of them, he was obviously the last to enter. He only has a one-colored soul core, yet he's so eager to enter the Tower of Radiance. It looks like this kid is impulsive. It'll be difficult for him to become outstanding in the future with his mental state. Elder Mu Zhong stared at Jian Shen as he gradually vanished into the Tower of Radiance. He secretly shook his head. The Tower of Radiance was a gray, hazy world. Visibility was not great. A faint, gray mist permeated the entire space, limiting one's vision to a range of only 100 meters. The ground below was desolate. It was filled with a deathly stillness. Jian Shen frowned slightly as he looked at the miniature world within the Tower of Radiance. He felt like he was suffocating the moment he entered the tower. He actually felt like his own life and death were no longer under his control. Moreover, he could sense slivers of the gray mist deep in his body. He could sense a heavy presence of death from the gray mist. The gray mist is the resentment formed from the lingering regrets of the artifact spirit after it passed away. Once too much of it seeps into your body, it'll cause severe damage. It can even affect the mind. As a result, you can't stay here for too long. Once you feel like you've reached your limit, you have to retreat. Donglin Yanxue looked back at Jian Shen and explained in detail, the injuries won't be anything significant to the Radiant Saint Hall. You can recover from them quickly no matter how severely injured you become. However, once the mist invades the soul and affects the mind, it'll be far too severe, as injuries to the soul are extremely hard to deal with even for our Radiant Saint Hall. Jian Shen nodded to express that he understood. He said, where are the cultivation methods and various secret techniques from the seniors hidden? Many ancient imprints drift through this space. Every single ancient imprint was left behind by a past expert of our Radiant Saint Hall. They represent a cultivation method, a radiant arte, or the knowledge on cultivation from our past seniors. However, benefiting from these imprints have nothing to do with strength. It completely depends on personal talent and luck. Donglin Yanxue stared at Jian Shen deeply and explained in detail, close your eyes and open your mind. Call out with your heart. If you are lucky enough, those ancient imprints will come to find you and pass on their contents to you. Jian Shen immediately attempted what Donglin Yanxue told him. He faced the suppression from the lingering regrets of the artifact spirit and the influence from the Tower of Radiance itself, so both the senses of his soul and his regular senses had been reduced to a minimum. They were basically useless now. As a result, he could only try to follow Donglin Yanshue's instructions. Jian Shen was no ordinary person. He had comprehended the laws of the hallowed with a one-colored soul core. That was more than enough to demonstrate his talent. He was far more talented than Donglin Yanxue. As a result, when he opened his mind and called out with his heart, he sensed the existence of 3 ancient imprints very soon. Of course, this was not because of his regular senses. Instead, it was because the 3 ancient imprints had established a mental connection with him willingly. As a result, Jian Chen could sense their existence with precision. Under Jian Chen's senses, the 3 ancient imprints shot through the space there with terrifying speed. They would be in the air sometimes and underground at other times. They all arrived 10,000 kilometers away in a flash. It was like they could teleport. Even when Jian Chen erupted with his full speed, he might not be able to catch up to them. When she saw how Jian Chen had already begun calling for the ancient imprints, determination suddenly flooded Donglin Yanshue's eyes. She waved her hand at the 8 protectors behind her and said to them secretly, "You go first. Don't mind me." "Your Highness, our responsibility." One of the radiant god kings hesitated, but before he could finish talking, Donglin Yanshue cut him off. "Don't worry. I won't be in any danger soon." On the other hand, Changyang only has a one-colored soul core. He can't remain here for long. I'll take him out once he can't last any longer, and then I'll come to find you. The 8 protectors looked at one another. After some slight hesitation, they left together. The Tower of Radiance was also a holy land that hid great fortunes to them. It could even change their fate. It was possible for them to find a great fortune that would basically pave their future path to greatness. They did not want to waste a single moment at all. They were eager to find their own fortuitous encounters. Strange. Why does Her Highness care about Changyang so much? After all, Changyang's identity is technically Her Highness' protector. Instead, Her Highness is watching over him. So much for living for so long. Can't you tell? Her Highness clearly holds feelings towards Changyang. How is that possible? Changyang clearly has a one-colored soul core. Apart from his support from Vice Leader Xian Zhan, he has nothing that stands out. But in the Radiant Saint Hall, there are countless people pursuing Her Highness. All of them are prodigies, and they are on a level that Changyang cannot compare to. Why would Her Highness choose him? I also find it unbelievable. According to my understanding of Her Highness, she was not like this in the past. However, she seemed to have become a completely different person ever since she returned from the world of Moon and Star. The protectors traveled away. Donglin Yanshue stared straight at Jian Chen's ordinary face. She seemed to be thinking of everything she had gone through in the world of Moon and Star with Jian Chen again, and her gaze gradually became gentle. 3 black-robed elders from the disciplinary hall sat within a majestic hall. They were all stern. The initial investigations of the world of Moon and Star have been completed. What I don't understand is how Changyang and Donglin Yanshue managed to survive after encountering Qing Shan. It's rather unbelievable. I had a look at the place as well. Although there are signs of battle involving vicious beasts, it's nowhere near enough for Changyang and Donglin Yanshue to escape from Qing Shan. It's just that Vice Leader Xian Zhan stands with Changyang. All the traces that lead to Changyang are difficult for us to handle. We can't use some special methods at all, since it'll be our loss if we offend Vice Leader Xian Zhan. The 3 elders sighed as they seemed troubled. A while later, one of the elders stood up and made up his mind. I'll go see the Vice Leader and report what we found from our investigations. Chapter 23-25. The Heaven-Splitting Clan. Dressed in his clean, white robes, Vice Leader Xian Zhan stood in his residence within the sacred hall with his hands behind his back. He gave off a heavy pressure. Before him was a black-robed elder who had condensed a soul tree. He reported the situation. He was one of the important members of the disciplinary hall. Are you saying that Changyang hides an unknown secret? Or that there's something off with him? A gleam of light immediately shone through the vice leader's eyes after he heard the elder's report. I dare not jump to conclusions. I just feel like it doesn't really make sense for Changyang and the chosen saint to escape from Qing Shan successfully because they did encounter Qing Shan. Even though a powerful vicious beast had burst out and kept Qing Shan busy, Qing Shan has the strength to hunt down Changyang and the chosen saint again after he kills the vicious beast. Even radiant god kings were unable to avoid being hunted down, let alone Changyang and the chosen saint who aren't even as fast as radiant god kings. As a result, it should have never been possible for Changyang and the chosen saint to escape from Qing Shan unless Qing Shan let them off purposefully. Although there's another 3 radiant god kings who survived as well, they did not encounter Qing Shan. You can explain it as they hid so well that even Qing Shan was unable to find them. Their situation is completely different from Changyang and the chosen saints. the elder of the disciplinary hall reported all the information he possessed as well as their conjecture to Vice Leader Xianzhan. Afterwards, he glanced at Vice Leader Xianzhan's expression carefully and continued, aside from this, I also have a feeling that, the elder paused as if he was worried and had no idea whether he should voice his thoughts or not. Speak, the vice leader commanded without any particular feeling. The elder said gently after mulling over it, I've carefully studied the location. From my many years of experience, I keep feeling that someone has purposefully made the place like that. It is like they're hiding something. Of course, that's only the feeling I have. There hasn't been any viable evidence. Have you turned back time and peered into the past? Vice Leader Xianzhan asked. The space in the world of moon and star was rather fragile. It could only endure the presence of infinite primes. Experts such as the 8 vice leaders could not set foot there. As a result, they could only use the elders to learn about the situation. We've asked guest elders to turn back time, but there were several dozen locations where Qing Shan fought in the world of moon and star. He disrupted the space-time there as well as the laws, so he rendered turning back time impossible. There's one more matter. I only just learnt that of all the disciples below God King, Chang Yang is the only one who hasn't gone through the blood test. Even the chosen saint obtained a blood medallion soon after recovering, the elder said carefully. The eyes of the vice leader narrowed. After a moment of thought, he waved his hand and said, You can go. Withhold the information for now unless the leader personally asks about it. Yes, I understand. Then I will be dismissing myself, the elder backed away politely. Xianzhan held the greatest status among the 8 vice leaders because he had already reached the peak of his cultivation level. No one knew when he would break through and reach the next stage. Now that vice leader Xianzhan had personally given an order, the elder of the disciplinary hall would never dare to pass this information on to the 7 other vice leaders no matter what. With the elder's departure, only Xianzhan remained within the large residence, standing there alone with his hands behind his back. With a flip of his hand, he took out the jade bottle that held a droplet of Xian Ming's blood and the jade slip that recorded a message from Xian Ming. He had obtained these things from Jian Chen. As he looked at the 2 items, Xianzhan's gaze deepened. The 9 Clouds Plain was one of the 49 Great Plains. Although it was nowhere near as renowned as the 7 Sacred Plains, the 9 Clouds Plain ranked towards the front among the 42 other Great Plains and 81 Great Planets. This was because the 9 Clouds Plain was home to an extremely powerful clan, the Heaven-Splitting Clan. The Heaven-Splitting Clan was a peak clan that truly rose up in the past 3 million years, having made their name in the Saints' world long ago. All of this was because the Heaven-Splitting Clan possessed a supreme expert only second to Grand Primes. He was the Heaven-Splitting Ancestor, one of the few peak experts in the Saints' world. He stood on the same level as the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. They were only a step away from Grand Exalt. At this moment, an Aqua Divine Hall stood quietly within the Heaven-Splitting Clan, giving off a vague pressure. Basically everyone knew about this divine hall in the Saints' world, as it had caused an uproar a few years ago in the Saints' world. It was the Neptunian Divine Palace that had claimed the lives of around half of the Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne. At this moment, the new master of the Neptunian Divine Palace, Xiao Man, accompanied by Zi Yun, sat with a man who seemed to be in his 30s. The man's appearance was nothing special. However, his eyes were peculiar. They would shine brightly at times as if they could see the heavenly secrets and understand all the mysteries in the world. At other times, his eyes would become extremely profound as if they hid a vast galaxy that was enough to swallow the souls of people as the galaxy revolved. He gave off no presence at all and seemed ordinary apart from his eyes, but Xiao Man and Zi Yun were clearly extremely cautious. They seemed to hold much fear towards the man. Even when they were in the Neptunian Divine Palace, Xiao Man's territory, they still did not feel safe at all. You can consider my suggestion. Although the Neptunian Divine Palace is of a high grade and is extremely powerful, it doesn't make you invincible. If you leave here, even more experts will begin eyeing you. It'll be very difficult for you to have peace. Only I can protect you and stop those people from eyeing the Neptunian divine palace, said the man. His voice was extremely gentle, enough to refresh people. With that, the man vanished silently. He has already left the Neptunian divine palace. A short old man appeared before Xiaoman. He powerlessly stared at where the man previously Saturday, artifact spirit, the Neptunian divine palace is a high-quality god artifact. It has unbelievable power. Is there really nothing you can do to that person when you control this power? Xiaoman asked. The short old man shook his head and said bitterly, he's the heaven-splitting ancestor. He stands at the same cultivation level as Old Master. Even if all the power within the Neptunian divine palace is unleashed, it will not be enough to stop the heaven-splitting ancestor. Moreover, you know about what happened earlier as well. When the Neptunian divine palace moved through space and avoided the peak experts, we were still extremely distant from the Nine Clouds plane where the heaven-splitting clan resides. In the end, the heaven-splitting ancestor did not even leave the Nine Clouds plane, yet he managed to transport the Neptunian divine palace from so far away. The Neptunian divine palace is no different from a plaything in the hands of someone like that. Do we really have to give the pernight ore to him? Although what he's giving in exchange is very precious, the pernight ore came from my ancestors after all. Xiaoman was reluctant. The short old man sighed gently and said, actually, the heaven-splitting ancestor has already treated us better than those annoying people who chased us before. After all, if he really wants to take the pernight ore, we can't stop him with his strength. Not only did he avoid doing that, but he even offered a great deal to exchange for it. Of course, the little master has already inherited the Neptunian divine palace and obtained everything that old master left behind. Perhaps the little master is not interested in the items that the heaven-splitting ancestor is offering, but his protection holds a completely different significance. Promised protection from an expert like the heaven-splitting ancestor cannot be purchased no matter how many cultivation resources are offered. That's where the true value lies. Once little master obtains the protection of the heaven-splitting ancestor, there will be no need to worry about other people causing disturbances in the future. Xiaoman thought about it silently. Although she had obtained the Neptunian divine palace and become its new master, the last few years had not been easy for her because she was just too weak. Many experts cast their greedy eyes on her. They would find her and act tough but talk soft so that they could control her. As long as they controlled her, it would mean controlling the Neptunian divine palace. Some experts began to take forceful measures when they realized that words would not achieve their desired results. Hence, it had not been peaceful for her recently. She was basically disturbed at all times. It was just like what the heaven-splitting ancestor had said. Although the Neptunian divine palace was a high-quality god artifact, it was not invincible. Once all of its energy was depleted and the formations became useless, its defenses would be drastically weakened. Before the Neptunian divine palace took a master, none of the countless experts in the saints' world dared to covet it due to something the Blood Tier Grand Exalt had said. However, now that the Neptunian divine palace had a master, an opportunity where the peak experts could obtain the Neptunian divine palace without infringing on the Blood Tier Grand Exalt's will had appeared. This was because the Blood Tier Grand Exalt only forbid people from fighting over the Neptunian divine palace. He never said they could not rope in the master. As a result, in the eyes of many peak experts, as long as they roped in Xiaoman, they would be able to obtain the Neptunian divine palace. This roping in was naturally referring to controlling. Xiaoman, we're here today because of Jian Chen's assistance. However, countless experts have trapped Jian Chen on the desolate plain for the sake of the Inata Tower. We have to find a way to help him. At this moment, Ziyun spoke up from beside Xiaoman. She struggled to be at peace whenever she thought of the situation that Jian Chen currently faced. Xiaoman's eyes immediately lit up. She said firmly, Sister Ziyun is right. If it weren't for Brother Jian Chen's help, let alone taking back my ancestors' belongings, I probably would have died in the Neptunian Divine Palace long ago. Now that Brother Jian Chen is in trouble, I have to find a way to help him. I've made up my mind. I can give all the pernight ore on the 8th floor to senior heaven-splitting ancestor, but the senior must protect brother Jian Chen. At the same time, the man who had appeared in the Neptunian divine palace hovered where the heaven-splitting ancestor cultivated. He held a black, thumb-sized bead. This man of ordinary appearance happened to be the heaven-splitting ancestor who was renowned in the saints' world. The heaven-splitting ancestor looked at the black bead in his hand, and undisguised desire and excitement filled his eyes. It was truly very difficult to believe that items that interested him so much would exist with his almost perfect cultivation. I never thought that such a shocking secret would be hidden within a bead formed from a fragment of the grand exalt of ancient path's soul. This terrifying thing that doesn't belong to this aeon has such frightening power. Once it's forged, even grand exalts will fear it. The pernight ore in the Neptunian divine palace had actually been placed there to nurture by the experts of the Taoist sect of Neptunia under the grand exalt of ancient path's suggestion. Since I've learnt that this pernight ore is crucial to forging that item from the grand exalt of ancient path's blurry memories, I have to obtain the pernight ore again. Grand exalt of ancient paths, since you weren't able to forge that item, and I happened upon a bead that's formed from a fragment of your soul and learnt the secret about the item, let me complete what you did not, the heaven-splitting ancestor murmured. He rubbed the bead fondly as he treated it like a treasure. At this moment, the heaven-splitting ancestor's face changed. He said, "The new master of the Neptunian divine palace has agreed to exchange the pernight ore with me." Fantastic. Protecting a kid called Jian Chen is a small master. Tu San. I await your orders, ancestor. An old man stood politely outside the secret room. He was the heaven-splitting ancestor's most loyal servant. Go to the desolate plain and bring me that person called Jian Chen, ordered the heaven-splitting ancestor. Does the ancestor desire the Inata Tower? The servant was surprised. The Inata Tower? The heaven-splitting ancestor showed some disdain and said, if it were in perfect condition, I would be rather interested, but it's damaged now, and there are seals from the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt. Repairing it will cost too much. It's not worth it to go up against Exian for a damaged Inata Tower. You only need to bring me Jian Chen. You can leave the Inata Tower to the brats on the desolate plain to fight over for. Yes, this one understands. On the Godnigma plain of the 7 sacred plains, the armor-wearing Tai Ta walked out of a secret room. He shone with dazzling, golden light within the majestic war god hall. The presence he radiated with was so powerful that it had reached the primordial realm. Tai Ta had already become an infinite prime. Congratulations on the war god's emergence. 3 old people appeared silently and bowed towards Tai Ta. These 3 old people were the 3 great elders of the god clan. Their authority was so great that they basically only stood second to the war god in the god clan. Is there news of Jian Chen? Tai Ta glanced past the 3 great elders and asked in a dignified sense like he was someone of importance. Your Majesty, Jian Chen possesses the Inata Tower, which has led to the coveting of many experts. Many organizations want to take the Inata Tower from Jian Chen then hand it up to the heavenly palace of Bisheng so that they can benefit from it. Jian Chen has already been trapped on the desolate plain now. However, his hiding method is extraordinary. As a result, the experts still haven't found a single trace of him after 3 or 4 years of searching, said a great elder. Although Jian Chen was someone insignificant, the matters that happened on the desolate plain recently were just too shocking. It had already spread across the saints' world such that many peak experts became familiar with Jian Chen's name. It said that the peak experts gathered on the desolate plain have already begun holding blood tests for those below God King, while the peak experts will look into everyone at God King and Infinite Prime personally. They want to find Jian Chen like this, a second elder added. This kid is rather special. I also tried some forecasting in an attempt to peer into his fate, but in the end, I was actually unable to peer into anything that involved him. If the search continues like this, Jian Chen will be found sooner or later even if he's rather special, the 3rd elder spoke as well. Tai Ta snorted coldly as his gaze became piercing. He said seriously, Jian Chen is my close brother. I will never allow anyone to do anything to him. Immediately send experts to the desolate plain to warn all those involved that as long as they harm my brother, they will become my enemy, regardless of who they are. Yes, Your Majesty. We will immediately send a hall elder to the desolate plain personally. The three great elders who basically stood supreme in the God clan did not dare to disobey Tai Ta. They followed his orders without any hesitation. This was because the war god was the supreme existence in the God clan. Regardless of his strength, his words would be a divine edict. It truly could not be disobeyed. As a result, even though Tai Ta was only an infinite prime right now, making him an ant-like existence compared to the three great elders, he could directly order them. Jian Shen stood with his eyes closed as he called out with his heart in the Tower of Radiance. He rapidly deepened his connection with the three ancient imprints. The three ancient imprints moved through the Tower of Radiance like fish in water. It was impossible to catch up to them, so the only method of obtaining them was to gain their recognition and have them approach you. In the end, under Jian Chen's efforts, one of the ancient imprints changed directions and directly headed towards Jian Chen. After a few flashes, a fist-sized ball of light appeared between Jian Chen's eyes. Ancient strands of thoughts poured out. Everything recorded within the ancient imprint had been passed on to Jian Chen. Sword transformation technique. With a thought, Jian Chen immediately understood that the ancient imprint actually recorded a radiant arte, but only hallowed Saint Masters could grasp it. Jian Chen could not help but become submerged in comprehending the radiant arte. At the same time, the laws of the hallowed descended and revolved around him. As he comprehended the radiant arte, the power of the laws of the hallowed pulsed according to a special pattern around him. They seemed to condense into a sword. Donglin Yanxue stood beside Jian Chen to look over him. When the laws of the hallowed descended, her eyes immediately widened. Astonishment filled her face as she fell into emotional turmoil. The laws of the hallowed. It's the laws of the hallowed. He has actually comprehended the laws of the hallowed with a one-colored soul core. How is this possible? Donglin Yanxue cried out inside. In that moment, she could not believe her eyes. She could not believe that this was reality. Most starred geniuses in the Radiant Saint Hall would comprehend the laws of the hallowed with a four-colored soul core. Only 5-star geniuses or above could comprehend the laws of the hallowed with a 3-colored soul core and become a hallowed Saint Master. Even a talented 9-star genius like her and the 4 other candidates for chosen saint had all comprehended the laws of the hallowed with a 2-colored soul core. However, Chang Yang had actually become a hallowed Saint Master with a 1-colored soul core. It was not like hallowed Saint Masters with 1-colored soul cores had never appeared. However, the last one to accomplish this feat appeared 1,000,000 years ago. This was more than enough to demonstrate the rarity of hallowed Saint Masters with 1-colored soul cores. Chang Yang is actually already a hallowed Saint Master, and from the looks of things, he comprehended the laws of the hallowed quite some time ago. He can be directly elevated to the status of chosen saint from this feat alone. There would be no need for the trials and challenges at all, but why didn't he do that and let me become the chosen saint instead? Donglin Yanshua's mind was a mess. She was stupefied. She deeply understood just how great the status a hallowed Saint Master with a 1-colored soul core would possess in the Radiant Saint Hall, as that represented a supreme genius that had not appeared for the Radiant Saint Hall in the past 1,000,000 years. At this moment, the ancient imprint flickered and vanished. Afterwards, the laws of the hallowed around Jian Chen vanished. He opened his eyes slowly and immediately saw Donglin Yanxue staring at him in shock. Jian Chen was immediately surprised by this. But afterwards, he suddenly realized that he had accidentally used the laws of the hallowed when he accepted the radiant arte from the ancient imprint. He did not make that happen. It was a completely instinctive action, so it was impossible for him to hide it. However, only his talent as a Radiant Saint Master had been exposed. This was not necessarily a bad thing for him. Moreover, he already planned to leave the Radiant Saint Hall after emerging from the Tower of Radiance. Hence, even if he exposed his talent, the important members of the Radiant Saint Hall would not have enough time to look into his background in detail. Why, you actually became a hallowed Saint Master a long time ago. Why have you been hiding it the whole time? Did you know that if the upper echelon of the Sacred Hall learned about your talent, you would be directly elevated to Chosen Saint? Donglin Yanxue stared at Jian Chen with mixed feelings. I have no interest in the position of Chosen Saint because I have no plans on staying in the Radiant Saint Hall for much longer. Jian Chen suddenly became stern and said, Donglin Yanxue, I hope you can keep this a secret. I don't want too many people knowing that I've already become a hallowed Saint Master. Why, you're going to be leaving the Radiant Saint Hall? Donglin Yanxue looked at Jian Chen blankly. For some reason, she became flustered when she heard that Jian Chen would be leaving. Jian Chen did not answer her. He closed his eyes and sensed what he had received and said, I just obtained a radiant arte called the sword transformation technique from the ancient imprint. However, it's not of a particularly high grade. Once I surpass God King, the radiant arte will become completely useless. Do you have any method for me to obtain cultivation methods and radiant arts of higher grade? Donglin Yanxue sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down her palpitating heart. She said slowly, the ancient imprints floating here have all been prepared for disciples below God King because the contents of the imprints just happen to suit disciples of such a level. However, there's a sacred pavilion within the depths of the Tower of Radiance. The sacred pavilion is the true spirit of our Radiant Saint Hall. It is the place where all the legacies reside. That's because all the cultivation methods, radiant arts, and so on have been left behind by past experts who have condensed soul trees. There's even a legend that the sovereign of the world who stood on par with Grand Exalts, the person who created this Tower of Radiance, had left his cultivation method in the sacred pavilion as well. Of course, no one has been able to obtain this cultivation method throughout the history of our Radiant Saint Hall, including all the leaders. As a result, the Tower of Radiance possessing a Grand Exalt's cultivation method has always remained as a legend. No one can prove that it truly exists, a Grand Exalt's cultivation method. Jian Chen's eyes lit up with undisguised desire. Clearly, he was unable to resist the temptation of the Grand Exalt's cultivation method either. After all, this was not a cultivation method for fighters. If it were a cultivation method for fighters, he would not become interested at all even if it were more powerful than the cultivation methods of Grand Exalts. This was because he cultivated chaotic force. He had embarked on a completely different path of cultivation. It had already taken shape such that it was impossible for him to switch to other cultivation methods. However, Radiant Saint Force was different. The exact thing he lacked right now was a cultivation method for it. As a matter of fact, it was because of this that he had gone to such great lengths to enter the Tower of Radiance. Let's go to the Sacred Pavilion, Jian Chen said. The Sacred Pavilion was where he truly wanted to go. Donglin Yanxue looked at him in worry and tried to persuade him. The Sacred Pavilion is in the depths of the Radiant Saint Hall. It'll take some time to reach that place. Although you're already a hallowed Saint Master, you only have a one-colored soul core after all. Under the corrosion of the mist, you won't be able to last for very long. Chang Yang, although the things recorded in the ancient imprints out here are not of particularly high quality, it's enough for you with your current strength. If you want to go to the Sacred Hall, I'll come with you once you raise your strength some more. I have a total of 3 chances to enter the Tower of Radiance during this 1,000-year period. I can leave the remaining 2 chances up to you. Donglin Yanxue spoke very softly. There was a deeply hidden tenderness in her gaze. After she learned that Jian Chen was a deviant that appeared once every 1,000,000 years, his status in her heart was no longer the same as before. You don't need to worry about me. I'm not as frail as you imagine me to be. Let's go, said Jian Chen. He did not take the mist here seriously at all. Donglin Yanxue felt helpless. She could only lead the way, taking Jian Chen to the sacred pavilion that resided in the depths of the Tower of Radiance. Is this the sacred pavilion? 3 days later, Jian Chen stood outside a small building completely built out of white rock and asked Donglin Yanxue. Donglin Yanxue stared at the small building, and a sliver of rarely seen seriousness appeared on her face. She said, "That's right, this is the sacred pavilion. Don't get fooled by its external appearance. Although it seems like nothing special from the outside, basically an ordinary stone hut, it has its own world inside. Even the radiant origin pearls from the world of moon and star come from within the sacred pavilion. The sacred pavilion is the center of the Tower of Radiance, and it is where the spirit of the Tower of Radiance resides," Donglin Yanxue explained to Jian Chen patiently before urging him. The 8 protectors should have entered the sacred pavilion. Let's go in as well. We stand in the mist at all times, so our time here is extremely limited. We can't waste it. Afterwards, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue entered the sacred pavilion together. Jian Chen immediately felt like he had entered a whole new world when he set foot in the sacred pavilion. However, the world within the sacred pavilion seemed no different from the outside world. It was also enveloped by thick, gray mist. The artifact spirit's resentment was everywhere. Jian Chen's heart jumped slightly. When he entered the sacred hall, he could clearly sense a mental pulse from the sword spirits. They actually awoke from their slumber slowly. We sense the presence of a being similar to us. Master, where is this place? Zi Ying's voice rang out inside Jian Chen's head. This is the Tower of Radiance, so this is the Tower of Radiance. The artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance is the same as us, the artifact spirit of the primeval divine hall, and the artifact spirit of the Anata Tower. We all originate from a strand of power from chaos. We're all undying existences. But it seems like the fate of the artifact spirit here was a little too miserable. Not only did he collapse, but even his consciousness had almost been dispersed, Zi Ying said in amazement. The sword spirits hid within Jian Chen's body and sensed the situation outside. The artifact spirit here has suffered a fate even worse than ours. He's the most miserable out of all the ones we've seen. If he were no undying, he would have dispersed long ago, Qing Suo also said sympathetically. Jian Chen was shocked by that and asked, "Are you saying that the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance isn't truly dead?" "Of course not. Qing Suo and I, along with the artifact spirits of the Anata Tower and the primeval divine hall that Master has seen before, are the same as the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. We're all undying existences. Even grand exalts can't kill us. They can only suppress or seal us, weakening us greatly. It's just that the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance has suffered the most miserable fate we've seen so far. He must have endured the most terrifying attack from a grand exalt in the past, causing him to collapse and his consciousness to begin dispersing. Although it's not truly death, who knows how long he'll take to recover in his current state. And after he recovers, he'll probably lose all of his past memories. He'll develop a new consciousness and become the second artifact spirit," Zi Ying sighed gently. "But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Master, before you is a huge fortuitous encounter," Qing Suo suddenly said excitedly. "A huge fortuitous encounter? What fortuitous encounter?" Jian Chen asked curiously. "The artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance has already collapsed, and its consciousness has begun dispersing. However, its power still remains within the Tower of Radiance. Didn't Master obtain a Radiant Saint artifact in the lower world back then? The artifact spirit evolved from a strand of Radiant Saint Force origin energy after a complicated process. From a certain sense, he shares the same origins as the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. As a result, we can make him fuse with the power and remaining consciousness from the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance, replacing the artifact spirit with the artifact spirit of the Radiant Saint artifact through a secret substitution such that he becomes the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance," Zi Ying said excitedly. Chapter 23-29, Substitution Under the Nose of Heaven, 1, What? Get the artifact spirit of the Saint artifact to devour the remaining power of the Tower of Radiance and make it become the new artifact spirit? Can artifact spirits devour and fuse with each other? Jian Chen jumped in fright from Qing Suo's words, this information was just too shocking. It surprised even Jian Chen. After all, this was basically stealing a peak god artifact, and it was robbery within the sacred hall that had the strictest security in the entire Tower of Radiance. Such a matter was completely reckless. But soon afterwards, excitement sprang up in Jian Chen's heart silently. He suddenly realized that if the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact really became the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance as Qing Suo had said, he would basically become the new master of the Tower of Radiance. If that happened, he could control the Tower of Radiance through the artifact spirit. He would be able to take whatever he wanted from the tower. Qing Suo, getting the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact to replace the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance shouldn't be that simple, right? After all, the difference in strength is just too great. They're on two completely different levels. Jian Chen calmed down very soon. He knew that replacing the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance would not be easy. If the replacement could be performed so easily, the Tower of Radiance probably would have fallen into the possession of the past leaders already. That's right. It's indeed very difficult to the point where basically no Grand Prime can achieve anything like this. However, that doesn't mean Ziying and I can't do this. Master, you can't forget that Ziying and I are spirits transformed from single strands of yin and yang qi when chaos split. We possess our unique aspects. We might never be able to grasp the techniques of some Grand Primes, but we also have some techniques that even Grand Exalts who have basically become a part of the ways cannot grasp, said Qing Suo. Ziying thought about something for a while and added, if the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance was only injured, replacing him would have been impossible. However, his situation right now is horrendous. He has collapsed, and his consciousness has almost dispersed. He isn't even self-aware now. He's just a ball of the most basic power. You can basically interpret him as dead. Even if he recovers, he'll develop a completely new consciousness. He won't possess his past memories. You can say that there are extremely strict conditions to replacing spirits of the universe. First, the artifact spirit must end up in a state like the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance, and secondly, they must be replaced by something of the same origins. The artifact spirit of Master Saint Artifact evolved from a strand of radiant Saint Force origin energy through a complicated process. Even though he's at an extremely low level, he just happens to share the same origins as the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance, so this condition is fulfilled. Thirdly, the origin of ways left behind by Grand Exalts passing away in cultivation is required. During the replacement process, the origin of ways can create harmony and promote the fusion of the two artifact spirits. Lastly, there needs to be a reversal of yin and yang and a disruption of laws. We need to elude the heavens before finally completing the substitution, but where are we going to find the origin of ways? Jian Chen became pained when he heard them mention the origin of ways. He happened upon the origin of ways from when the ancient Sky Wolf had passed away in cultivation on a desolate planet. However, he had already absorbed it, leaving not a single strand behind. Master, Qing Suo and I also collected some of the origin of ways from the ancient Sky Wolf. We have always been holding on to this origin of ways. Originally, we prepared it for Master's breakthrough to a supreme realm of cultivation, but it looks like we can't wait until then. We can only let the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact benefit from the origin of ways we collected back then. Ziying's voice rang out, although the origin of ways is precious and basically something that can only be found through luck, if the artifact spirit really succeeds, it won't be a waste. We already have the origin of ways. As for the reversal of yin and yang and the disruption of laws needed to complete the secret substitution, leave that up to Ziying and me. However, Ziying and I still haven't recovered our power, so we'll still need Master's help when the time comes. We won't be able to perform it alone. Of course, whether the artifact spirit succeeds in the replacement will be up to its own fortune. If he succeeds, the artifact spirit will undergo an evolution from its very core and reach a whole new level, truly becoming the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. However, if he fails, he will die and truly disperse. Ziying became stern towards the end. Jian Shen pondered about it and said, I'll ask the artifact spirit. Whether we attempt this or not will be up to him. Afterwards, Jian Shen immediately communicated with the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact, telling him the sword spirit's thoughts. As soon as the artifact spirit heard Jian Shen's suggestion, he agreed excitedly. He did not hesitate at all. For him, becoming the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance was equivalent to a puny cultivator suddenly gaining a body that was basically invincible. This temptation was just too great. Even if just the slightest carelessness would doom him forever, he was unable to suppress his urge to become powerful. Changyang, what are you staring there for? Do you feel uncomfortable? At this moment, Donglin Yenshue's voice rang out from beside Jian Shen. Donglin Yenshue could not help but ask in concern when she saw how Jian Shen stood there blankly. Jian Shen shook his head gently and replied, I'm fine. I just want to walk around and find my own fortune. I'll accompany you, Donglin Yenshue said gently. There's no need. I want to walk around by myself. Jian Shen declined the offer without any hesitation at all. With that, he used the radiant wings to leave, vanishing into the dense mist in the blink of an eye. Donglin Yenshue remained where she was, blankly staring in the direction that Jian Shen had vanished into. She was gloomy, unable to hide her depression. As for Jian Shen, he no longer held back after leaving Donglin Yenshue. He unleashed his full speed and headed towards the depths of the sacred pavilion. He knew that once the sword spirits truly began the process to replace the artifact spirit, there would be a huge disturbance. No one knew what would happen. As a result, he needed to travel far away enough from Donglin Yenshue and the 8 protectors to stop them from coming over and exposing his identity. After all, exposure at such a time would not be as simple as revealing his ability to wield martial soul force. It would be revealing the existence of the sword spirits. As a result, he could not allow anyone to witness the sword spirits performing the substitution. Chapter 2330, Substitution Under the Nose of Heaven. 2. The sacred pavilion of the Tower of Radiance contained an extremely vast miniature world. No one knew just how large it was. Jian Shen moved through the miniature world at full speed, shooting into the distance like lightning. He could basically cross 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. The mist formed from the lingering resentment of the artifact spirit in the space there had no influence on him at all. He could last a very long time in the Tower of Radiance with his chaotic force. Only after a day of traveling did Jian Shen stop. He sat down in an empty place, and with a thought, a streak of golden light shot out from between his eyes, forming a tiny tower. The tiny tower was the Radiant Saint Artifact. Ziying, Qing Suo, get ready to begin, Jian Shen secretly called the sword spirits. The figures of the sword spirits immediately appeared, condensing above Jian Shen's head as an illusionary couple. Once we succeed, you will change in a single instance and become the new artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. You will be countless times more powerful than in the past. However, if you fail, you will truly vanish from the world. After all, you are not us. You are not undying. Are you ready? The sword spirit stared at the Saint Artifact sharply. I'm ready. With risk comes reward. For the sake of this opportunity for me to rise up, I don't mind even if I might become utterly doomed, the artifact spirit of the Radiant Saint Artifact said firmly. Good. Now, we will tell you what you need to do to replace the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. It's nowhere near as simple as it seems. We can only push you along. Whether you succeed will depend on your personal luck and fate. Jian Shen was stern. He immediately used a secret technique and generated chaotic flames through igniting his chaotic force to melt the Radiant Saint Artifact. Jian Shen's chaotic force had reached major achievement, so the chaotic flames were extremely terrifying. The Radiant Saint Artifact was not of a high grade either, so it melted at a visible rate as it stood within the flames. Nothing remained after getting melted. It had directly been vaporized, burnt into nothingness by the chaotic flames. This was because only materials of certain grades could leave behind something if they were burnt by Jian Chen's terrifying chaotic flames. As the radiant saint artifact melted bit by bit, the artifact spirit shrieked out miserably as if he were experiencing hellish pain. As the artifact spirit, he was born from the saint artifact. He could not be separated from the saint artifact. If the saint artifact was destroyed, he would disperse. This was because he was only an artifact spirit that had evolved from energy of lower grades in a lower world. He was not undying like the sword spirits, who could continue to exist even when their swords had shattered. Death awaits with failure. Once you've taken this step, you have embarked on a path of no return. This is only the first step, so you must endure it, or you'll disperse, the sword spirits warned gently. At the same time, the origin of ways shot out from their hands and wrapped around the artifact spirit. We will use a strand of the origin of ways to protect your body. This will prevent it from being destroyed. However, the pain is unavoidable. You can only rely on yourself for that. Remember, even when you're protected by the origin of ways, your consciousness will still collapse and be reduced to energy in the surroundings once you cannot endure the pain anymore. The sword spirits warned extremely sternly. Although the secret substitution, the act of replacing the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance with the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact, was performed by them, they could only push the artifact spirit along. Success or failure would still depend on the artifact spirit alone. In just a few seconds, the Radiant Saint Artifact had been truly reduced to nothingness under the chaotic flames, and the artifact spirit had become a fist-sized ball of light. This was his body as well as his consciousness. It was equivalent to someone's soul. Originally, he would share the same fate as the Saint Artifact. Once the Saint Artifact was destroyed, he would not be able to survive. This was the order of nature. However, he just happened to be protected by the origin of ways. The origin of ways originated from when Grand Exalts passed away in meditation, and Grand Exalts were existences who were equivalent to the ways. They were existences who could throw the laws into disorder and control the operation of the heavenly ways. As a result, the artifact spirit had basically broken the laws and interfered with the heavenly ways under the protection of the origin of ways. That was why he could survive. Quick, fuse with the base of the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance. The base should be present everywhere. You share the same origins as him, so you should be able to sense the existence of the base. You have to complete all of this before our origin of ways is completely depleted, or you'll still end up dispersing, the sword spirits called out as the origin of ways constantly poured out from their hands. The artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact remained silent. He immediately began to fuse with the power of the Tower of Radiance's artifact spirit that he could sense. Originally, the power of the Tower of Radiance's artifact spirit was terrifyingly great. Even just a shred of it could easily wipe him out, truly dispersing him. This was because they were on two completely different levels. The artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact had no right to devour or fuse with it. However, the origin of ways left behind by a Grand Exalt was completely different. As the artifact spirit was wrapped up in it, it was equivalent to creating brand new laws in the world, forcefully changing all of this. It adjusted the artifact spirit's power, giving him the right to absorb the power of the Tower of Radiance's artifact spirit. The artifact spirit began to absorb this power sliver by sliver. Whenever he absorbed a shred of it, the artifact spirit would begin to swell at an unbelievable rate like he had just eaten something nourishing. His body began to strengthen at an inconceivable rate. The power of the Tower of Radiance's artifact spirit was just too terrifying. Even just a single shred of it was enough for the artifact spirit to become countless times more powerful than before. As the artifact spirit of the Saint Artifact rapidly strengthened, his absorption of the power gradually sped up as well. As the power got rapidly absorbed, the entire world within the Tower of Radiance underwent a drastic change. The mist that permeated the Tower of Radiance was the lingering resentment that possessed the artifact spirit's regret after dispersing. This resentment seemed to possess the slightest trace of intelligence. At this moment, the resentment seemed to sense something. Suddenly, the mist surged violently and began to gather in from all directions. It began to violently assault the artifact spirit protected by the origin of ways with intense fury. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.